I'd like to welcome everybody to a special work session of the City Council, December 6th, 2023. And the time is, we'll call it 5 p.m. It's just a little bit after 5. We'll go ahead and start this work session with a presentation of moderate income housing and accessory dwellings with Robert. Looks like you're ready, Robert.
I'm up. So thank you, Council. I don't have many slides tonight, but I need some feedback. And then we'll save some time because I know that Dave wants to do a little bit of part of this work session as well. So we'll save some time for him. But tonight we're going to be talking about accessory dwelling units and the role that they play in our city. Just a little bit of background. Oh, thank you, Jason. Okay, so Payson City has allowed internal accessory dwelling units for quite some time. The state a couple of years ago passed some legislation that allowed accessory dwelling units in all residential zones in single-family homes that are owner-occupied throughout the state. That was a big to-do. There was a lot of controversy over that, but Payson City already allowed that. So Payson City, we do provide for that. But one thing that Payson City doesn't currently do, and that's going to be the main topic tonight, is allowing accessory dwellings in detached structures, detached from the main dwelling on the site. One of our moderate income housing strategies was to create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight is just evaluating the requirements necessary to allow detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones in our city. I'm just going to put a big caveat here and say we don't have to allow detached accessory dwelling units in the city. That's not what our moderate income housing strategy requires. We just need to look at the possibility of it. And that's what I'm going to be asking you guys to do tonight, is evaluate some of those requirements that we would have for those. So this is just a little illustration of what we commonly refer to as different types of ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So up on the top left, this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. It's a standalone unit, something that you would see in the backyard. Lots of people call them granny flats or pool houses, or lots of people put them above the garage, like you would see on the top right. Those two illustrations would not be allowed in Payson City currently. The bottom two are allowed in Payson City. Those are internal units, meaning that they're attached to the house and it's all part of one dwelling.
Does that also mean that they're only accessible through one, or can they have separate entrances?
They have separate entrances. Yeah. And one of the changes that state code allowed was that you do not have to have an internal connection to those units. Okay.
But do you have to have a separate?
You have to have a separate entrance. Well, you don't have to have a separate entrance. You can have a separate entrance.
Internal connection.
But you don't have to have an internal one anymore. It used to be that, like if you were redoing your basement, you'd still have to have an internal connection to your basement, right? You don't necessarily have to have that anymore, okay? So what I would like tonight are a few of your thoughts on the following. I'm just going to go through most of this and then come back to it. So setbacks, accessory structures aren't allowed in front yards. Any accessory dwelling is, or any accessory structure, whether it's a garage or a shed or whatever, you can't have that in your front yard. But in the side and the rear yard, it has to be at least 5 feet from the property line.
Question.
Mhm.
So with that said, I'm okay with that, but we've got PUEs everywhere.
Right.
Would it be better to say whatever the PUE is, that's how far it has to be away?
Well, technically, when somebody puts an accessory structure there, they take on the liability that if the PUE was ever needed, they would have to remove it. So, which is something to think about, because removing a tough shed from a PUE could be a lot easier than removing a garage or something like that. It just depends on the amount of risk that people want to take on. So that might be something to consider as we're moving forward.
Told that they have to stay out of the PUE.
Well, Jim, we went through and made a lot of PUEs based on utopia, based on future, right? We were thinking whatever may come down the line, we want to make sure that we've got access to get it to residents, to get it. And so we might have over blanketed. Well, I don't think you can ever over blanket PUEs, but we might have some that are more extreme than need be.
Right. And I think the other caveat to that is, again, we're only talking about side and rear yards,
Right.
which customarily, that's not where those utilities are located. We like them to be in the front yard, so there's really easy access to the street, right? That doesn't happen 100% of the time, but that's kind of the chicken and egg balancing there.
Okay.
So the question on setbacks is, would this be appropriate if we allowed accessory dwellings in detached structures? Building height. Currently, accessory structures can't exceed 18 feet in height. So if you thought about if you had a detached garage on your property, and say we allowed ADUs, it would be really, really difficult to build an ADU. That would be a really flat roof, depending on the size and depending on the size of your garage and the height of your garage.
Unless you were for Barbie dolls.
Right. And then we get into some building code issues. Yeah. Parking. So normally in residential zones, we require 2 covered stalls in a subdivision. If you have a accessory unit attached to your house, then you have to have 3 parking spaces. Those can be tandem. There's some specifics in our code that relates to parking as it relates to accessory dwellings, but this is something that always comes up. Parking is always, no matter what we do in life, parking is going to be part of the conversation, right? But this one especially.
Does that mean parking spaces outside of the garage or carport? Can it be?
Parking spaces are deemed as being off-street.
Off-street parking.
Anything off the street, whether it's covered or not.
So it doesn't really matter.
Covered or not.
Right.
They have to be off-street and they
And
can't,
outside of the setback.
and they cannot be within that 25-foot setback in the front.
That's correct.
Which we seem
Well-
to have a lot of that.
Well, you can have parking that leads up to it. Yeah, you can have parking. Currently,
Is there a limit to the amount of parking you can have in the front yard? Because I mean, we have a neighbor, they sold the house, 40 people moved in, they tore out all the grass, laid gravel, and
yeah, parking is supposed to be on the driveway.
It can't be within the front setback.
It can if it's on the driveway.
If it's on the driveway, they just.
Those
can't
can
be
count.
covered.
So typically, if you have a single family home with a garage, we would count that as having 4 parking spaces. Because you have 2 in the garage, 2 on the driveway, right?
But it can't be beyond the driveway.
No, can't be.
Can't
in
be,
the
it
street.
can't be over the side.
You can't.
In your neighborhood?
Yeah.
I think
That's
that's
exactly
some problems that we're
Supposed
encountering.
to be addressed.
So
That's why I'm asking.
So if you have a situation now, like currently, Robert goes out, buys a house in Payson, it has an attached garage, and he wants to convert that to an accessory dwelling. He could do that, but he also has to provide covered parking in addition. So you can't just replace the garage with a unit and not worry about the parking. You still have to provide the parking.
And it's covered that it has to be covered.
If it's in a subdivision, yes. And then the last thing I think that we should talk about is size. This comes up all the time in all of the conversations about ADUs that I've ever been in. It's like, oh, well, should we limit the size of them? Should they only be 1,000 square feet, or should they only be X number of square feet? Currently, the way that we limit the size of structures in our residential zones is it's based on maximum lot coverage. So if you have a 10,000 square foot lot in Payson, you can only cover 45% of that lot in a structure. And the structure is anything that has a roof, right? So if you have a house that has we'll give it a big house with a 2,000 square foot footprint, then you've used a little over half.
Right.
45%. Hard surface doesn't count towards that.
It's something with a roof.
Right, with a roof. So you couldn't necessarily build two 2,500 square foot buildings
On a 10,000.
on a 10,000 square foot lot. Right. But you could
You'd be at 5,000 square feet, so you'd be within that 40 to 50%.
so you can only do 45% on that particular one. Yeah. So
You say that we don't have to have these ADUs. We don't.
no, there's nothing that requires this. I'll say
But some.
I sent this out
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah, we all read that.
Yeah.
We're gonna be forced to.
Well, I think that
That's what I was going.
I mean,
it's all going to be part of a strategy, right?
Yep.
And those are the things that we have to consider. But right now we've said, okay, we're just going to evaluate if we allowed these in our community, what would be some of the requirements that we would want to see? And this is the part where I would love your thoughts and your feedback on, first of all, what do you think about this? And then addressing some of these specific issues. Before we go there,
That's over 18 feet. By now.
that one is not in Payson.
I bet you could do that one at 18 feet.
Let me just quickly share this other page.
Well, but staff's pulling their hair out right now, trying to get affordable housing percentage where we gotta be, and this could be another answer to affordable housing.
Right.
Good,
It could be.
especially since the state was so brave to come out and say affordable housing is anything under $450,000.
Did they really say that?
Yesterday.
Is that what he said was 450,000?
Yep. Isn't that right, Robert? That's
Who
what,
can afford that?
Well, I have a personal opinion on that, and I'm going to share it. One thing that we have to really get our heads around is we keep using lots of different terms interchangeably, and those terms are not interchangeable. Okay, so we talk about moderate income housing, and we talk about affordable housing, and we talk about housing affordability and housing attainability, and we talk about starter homes. Those are all different things, but they get lumped into one big group. And so we can say, and so it comes out that a $450,000 house or dwelling is an affordable house. And that might be affordable to somebody, but I guarantee you that's not affordable to the majority of people in Payson.
70% is what the number they used last night, cannot afford $450,000.
Yeah. So this is a good discussion, so let's go here.
His blood's up a little bit.
Yesterday I read that in Utah County, the livable wage is $104,000.
That's combined income.
That's of a household.
Of a household income.
A household income needs to be $104,000 to live that That's not extravagant, that's just to afford, that's to afford housing at 30% of your gross income. Basic food, utilities, transportation.
Does not-
$104,000.
Does not include toilet paper.
No. No. So about 55% of the residents of Payson would fall in what we call moderate income housing, which is 80% of area median income. Area median income for Utah County is about 90, I think it's $96,000. So right there, you can kind of start, when we start putting numbers to this, it is a big issue, and it's something that we do have to consider and concentrate on. Don't get me wrong. Some of the methods that are being used to concentrate on it, I don't necessarily agree with, but it is a really important issue. So, sorry, I was going to show you something, but I'll come back to this one.
Yeah, go back to the slide.
Yeah.
Questions.
This is just a lot of communities have grappled with this. This is actually a website that I was going to show you where this community has actually provided like 160 pre-approved plans. Like if you follow this plan, and you can be approved as long as it's cited correctly on your property, and it makes the process a lot easier. Those are things that we could definitely look at if this is the direction that we want to go as a community. But that's the city of Seattle. There are several.
That's a no in my book. Payson's not ready for that.
Okay.
That's me.
So my first question is, how do you feel about detached accessory dwelling units?
I personally, even to start the conversation, I would limit it to a lot size. You're not saying a percentage of the size of the lot. I think it's a lot size.
Okay.
If it's not, a third of an acre, a half an acre, there's just not. But that's my personal opinion.
So that's a good point, Councilmember. The state require that if you're going to have an internal unit, your lot size has to be 6,000 square feet, which is significantly smaller than a third of an acre.
Right. Well, we're not talking internal, we're talking external.
Right, external. So
Yeah.
you're saying that if you're going to have an external unit, you have to have X number of square feet on your property.
That's my 2 cents.
Oh.
Did I get shunned for that one? Okay. I had warnings, I'm not allowed to say things.
That one you can say whatever you want. Okay, so lot size is important and having a lot minimum.
I would disagree with that. It's got to be that high.
Okay,
I don't have a problem with saying some lot size, but I disagree that it's got to be a third or a half.
okay.
I actually like the 40 to 50% number that you had down there. Maybe it's 40 on these.
So maybe you had if you had a smaller lot, you could still have them, but it would just be a smaller unit. Or the primary dwelling's a little smaller. Okay.
Why are we limiting it to one?
Because do one.
Well, I know, but I'm just opening the can of worms, because you're saying it doesn't matter as long as it's 50%. I can put 4 container houses on here and still only be 30% of my properties. Why would that be legal?
Customarily, an accessory dwelling unit can still be considered part of single family residential. Once you go to more than that on a lot, then we would consider it multifamily residential. But
I would say
good
it's
point.
limited to one.
Good point. But you could limit it.
Poking the bear.
No, that's good.
I think you do that, the size, but you limit the
Limit the
accessory
number.
unit to one.
Yeah.
Outside of accessory.
You're being awful quiet. You're a lifelong resident.
I personally think that these are a good way to help with our range of housing in this branch.
In what way?
An accessory, outside accessory. The way that can be done. I don't see a problem with it. I don't see much different between it and one internal. There needs to be a few more different, there needs to be a couple more restrictions in my own opinion, than the internal.
I think that's a good point. I mean, we were just talking about the price of housing. This actually, not just a detached accessory dwelling units, but accessory dwelling units can often be a way to offset a mortgage to help people get in while providing more affordable rent for those people in that.
The thing I'm seeing here though is if you do this, you're opening the can of worms for the tiny houses. We had the tiny house question, can we build them in Payson? We told them no. But this, are you limiting the size of it? Does it have to be a certain square footage? Would it qualify as a tiny house as one of these?
But what's the issue with the tiny
Yeah,
house?
why is
I
tiny
don't
house
have
an
a
issue?
problem with that because like you go to St. George and you have all these little mother-in-law apartments. And that's basically what it is a teeny house.
It's a tiny
It
house.
comes to just like, my biggest understanding was that it's firefighters. And you start getting into those little tiny houses.
Well, I would think you would have to be able to get to them, that's why you.
No, wait, it's like your egress for a house, a bedroom window has to be a certain size, and you put that in a tiny house, and all of a sudden it's 3/4 of the wall.
Well, I'm sure if
Yeah.
if the tiny house started on fire, it's just gonna take off.
That's not the point. The point is we have these laws to protect those that are in it, you know?
I know that.
But you still
But
have
it may not be the firefighters going in after a fire, it might be a heart attack. Somebody's in there now, all of a sudden, what do you do? Bring in a crane to take the top off of it, because you don't have a big enough
They
hole
have to
for you
figure-
guys to carry.
They
You still have to
normally
meet code, whether it's a tiny house or a large house.
Yeah, but you should still have your normal sized door, and then they normally have a bigger window right there that they could get in and knock it out.
Just making.
No, I know you're making comments. This is good.
Can I kind of play a thorn in the road here?
I would just interject this one thing that there's nothing to say that a city can't impose a size minimum.
So we either be proactive here or we let the state tell us that we're not meeting
The code,
the
the criteria that the state sets.
Which they haven't done this yet.
But it's coming.
They will.
And when they do, what we say now isn't gonna matter anyway.
Well, it might push it off.
In other words, I would rather have a choice in it than to be told. Right. And I think if we're proactive in how we approach this, I don't think Payson City residents as a whole is ready for that picture that you just showed. But I do think Payson residents understand that there's more and more family living with family, and an accessory dwelling unit makes sense rather than everybody standing on top of each other in the home. This at least allows a little bit of synchrony with parking that we can now legislate and control, right? That our police can say, hey, 3 stalls, 3 parking, all of it lined up on the street, can't have it. I think setbacks are very critical for future whatever.
My recommendation on the setbacks is that we stay outside of the PUE with whatever building goes in.
I don't have a problem going on top of PUE, because there's some PUEs, Kurt, that we made that were 10 foot. And that, that's,
And they may never get used.
and that's limiting one property owner and and another property owner down the street doesn't have a 10.
I've tried to use lots of PUEs that had stuff in it.
I know.
And it's
You
a
run
lot
into-
easier to not have it there. It's a lot easier to not have it there and than to try to get it out of it too.
Then if we did that, okay, I'll go down that road with you. If we did that, I would be in favor of increasing the building footprint on the square footage of lot that you're talking about, if you're going with a 3.5 acre. Does that make sense? A little less landscape, a little more footprint if we stay away from the PUE.
So increase the setback, but then
Increase the
the
setback.
lot coverage is.
And quite
increased.
frankly, increasing the setback makes better neighbor anyway.
Especially for
I told
accessory.
you guys a couple weeks
PUE
ago,
falls in the right spot, they're gonna want.
I bid off on a development next door to my house, and every bedroom on that looks in my backyard. And I've come to live with it, I'm not happy with it, but it's an ordinance that I agreed to a long time ago. I think setbacks make good neighbors. And if we are gonna allow accessory buildings, I think setbacks are something that ought to be really thought of, considering the neighbors.
Okay, so, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because I'm gonna jump in really quick. So if we allow them currently, you could have an 18-foot tall dwelling, 10 feet from the next one on someone else's lot. We allow 5-foot setbacks in other, PDs. But that's the reality of what we're talking about here. So,
I think we need to allow them, but make sure we do it the right way and have good neighbors too. And have the ability to have fire, take care of them. If we don't, then the state will come in and make that decision for us. And if we do, then and enough cities do that, that takes away the state's reason for doing that.
so would a 10-foot setback be more appropriate?
I would entertain that, if we would allow to increase the square footage of footprint on the yard.
Something, so you're talking
I mean, it's gotta be a little
55% or
bit-
something?
Or 60.
Well, it's not gonna
55 or
change the
60.
percentage of the yard that you can use,
Huh?
because the 10 feet around the outside of it still count as the non-used space.
Right. But if you've only got a third acre,
If you've only got 10,000 square feet on your
Yeah.
lot, and you already have a 2,000 square foot home on there, and then you
And now you come in 10 feet
Right.
on,
come 10 foot all the way around.
your footprint, your buildable area shrinks, definitely.
it all
I
of a
was
sudden
saying,
becomes
if you would
maybe,
give your ADU its own little
Yeah,
backyard.
but you're gonna have hard surface, right? With your driveways and that limits you from building there. So you're gonna have all this that gives you the bonus, but all of a sudden you don't have any room to build anything. That makes sense? So
I would
the
have a
other
problem
thing
with
that I would favor on an accessory unit, a living accessory unit, is not 18 feet.
Yeah, I would say that we limit it to something less than what a regular house can be.
So do the math, you would do an 8-foot wall, right?
Well, say you did it over a garage, say for example, it was over a detached garage.
Well, this would eliminate that.
No, we're talking about a detached garage.
Right.
With an accessory unit over the top.
Right, but if we said 15 feet is the maximum height, you're done, because a garage is 10 to 12 feet tall. So you couldn't build that
That's
second
what
story.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
You gotta
Congress,
go
or
from the garage-
Councilman Prosgaard, are you saying shorter than 18 feet or taller than?
Shorter.
Shorter than, so no more than one story.
I'm looking at an ADU in a backyard.
Okay.
Okay, so if you build an 8-foot wall and then had a four pitch roof.
Mhm.
Let's just use a 5-foot rise, right? So now you're talking 13 feet. You could go to a 5 or a 6 pitch and still be under,
But that excludes anybody that has a detached garage that could be used as a.
but I'm also trying to discourage a 2-story.
That's, I get, but your
That's
detached
where I'm
garage
at.
would still fall. If
No,
you
it's
I'm
not
all
an
for an ADU.
No, but you could convert it to an ADU, you just couldn't put an
Yeah.
ADU on top.
So
Right.
not over a structure.
Right.
You could build a detached garage and put it next to it.
No,
Yes.
no second stories, could we word it that way, because the 18 feet, still sometimes if you.
You could
Depends on the
squeeze
size of
it.
the building.
Make 10-foot walls, I get that.
Yeah.
I guess my thinking was, I would rather eliminate a 2-story in a backyard looking into somebody else's.
Then maybe
I'm-
what
I'm
you ought to
still
say
into
is
good
is that there don't be no 2-story ADUs.
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
So that eliminate the possibility of a bonus room over that same room. So just be one kind of slab on grade kind of effect, you would never be able to.
If it was an existing structure,
That's not a problem.
I don't think that'd be a problem.
Well,
A new structure would be no two stories.
Wait a minute, I gotta clarify. I'm trying to forward think here of what's possible in a building realm. I think an existing attached structure would be okay. An existing detached structure.
It would depend on the structure.
I see people taking advantage of what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to give them a bonus on their lot. But I don't want them to grab for more than what we're trying to be good neighbors and everything else.
I'm sitting here thinking 18 feet might actually still limit you on a single story, because if you went in and dug a hole, put it in there, had 3 feet of foundation sticking up, threw your floor on there, your roof, your walls, and then threw your roof on there, you'd be touching that 18 feet real hard and would still only be a single.
I
story.
like
That's
the
why we
idea
said-
of a one-story.
That's why we
Yeah.
just say it's a single story, instead of a dimension.
so maybe you just say that an accessory dwelling unit couldn't be built over a garage or as a two-story structure or
Let's take
anything
the
like
spirit of
that.
what we're trying to do here, right? Make it affordable.
I'm sorry, I'm making you think like planners and you'll never recover.
2 stories. No, that's not a school. That's a basement.
Are you backing me into this corner?
Nope.
I wanna be as neighborly as I can here. We gotta think about, we're talking, most of this stuff, we're talking subdivision, right?
Yeah.
And subdivisions are already tight.
I look more like my neighborhood would be a prime example. I mean,
But you're an existing neighbor.
I'm in an existing neighborhood, but there are a lot of people that have big backyards that are not being
In
utilized.
the old parts of town.
And when you start saying they could do,
That's not a subdivision.
I know, but all I'm saying is that I'm wondering if, you know, hey, it can't be more than 900 square feet as well as part of it, because
I would.
I
wouldn't
could
limit
put
that.
a,
Right.
according to
not
your
limit that.
standards, I could go in and put a 5,000 square foot house behind mine right now,
Do it.
and it would qualify as an
Do
ADU.
So what?
Right?
That's
That's
correct.
correct, and that's why I'm saying I wonder
But
if,
you have to live on the property.
I wouldn't see him.
But guess what?
Right.
I could get him far enough
Still
away
only
from my
get one
house,
more
it wouldn't
parking
bother me.
Is-
But
If we held this, I personally think the parking ought to go up.
I think
If there's an outside accessory unit, there needs to be 2 additional.
I totally agree.
Okay.
That's my feeling, is that if there's an outside accessory unit, there has to be 2 additional beyond what's
I
required.
think
for
Ryan,
any accessory unit
You're
requires.
gonna be,
additional
you're gonna
parking.
be making the decision here. What do you feel?
We've also got Ann as well.
Anne's over there too, she's hiding
You keep
amongst the
tipping your head
staff.
one way or the
I know,
other.
that's all right.
What do you think?
I think it's gonna open a whole bunch of, you're gonna.
Come up here. And I'm also just gonna remind you that I've exceeded my time limit.
But this is, I mean, we're giving you direction to move forward, and I just
Right.
gonna have them to help give some.
But bear in mind, what we're trying to avoid is the state dictating to us.
Exactly, I'm totally on board with that part. Well, there are several factors you have to think of before you make this decision. The parking, people are already not following the parking in the city,
That's an enforcement issue,
yes.
But we don't want to create a bigger.
and that's why we wanna go to 4.
Right, and that could limit
The size.
how many people want to do it if they know that they have to bring in
And-
2
and limit
more,
the size of what they can do.
right?
Yeah, so.
But I think we made that pretty simple. If they've already got a 2-car garage,
Mhm.
2 in the garage and 2 outside. the
If
garage.
they use their garage,
That's the problem right there is Mormons typically fill their garage full of old food
Utahns.
storage
yeah,
and on the records, right?
or just junk, like they just, I use my garage,
You
so-
go around these subdivisions on a summer day when everybody's garage doors are up,
it's treasures.
there's no way they're getting 2 cars.
Right. And so, and the 18 feet high, that's a lot.
But
It's
in
not really
reality,
that much.
Brett's right.
In
If you
building,
had,
that's
Right.
really not that
if
much.
you had.
No,
3
it's
foot of
not, but it
foundation-
can be.
3 foot of foundation showing, and then what you're forgetting is you need a foot of floor joist.
Mhm.
And then you got,
And
and
then
then you got an
8-foot
8-foot ceiling,
walls.
and then you got a
And then a
foot.
4-foot or a 412 pitch on a
No.
20-foot building, 10, that's, okay, so that's 17 feet right there.
Right.
Exactly.
You match.
And it's kind of funny because I've been really into watching tiny home videos on YouTube. And there are so many different kinds.
Yeah.
And they don't have to have a 2-story, they can have lofts. They can do a whole bunch of stuff with
Well, the
that.
loft would still constitute a second story.
No.
No,
Because it
Not
would
by
be
building,
second
no.
story.
there's no story. It's like a
Determine that.
loft.
That's all
And it
right.
depends on the pitch of the roof. Is it gonna be like this or is it just gonna be like this?
Part of the structure.
It depends.
Adding to the structure.
It's just where you go to sleep.
You don't hang out there because you can't stand up
4
straight.
parking stalls,
So-
18 feet, single structure, or single.
Single story.
Single story without the 18 feet. I would not put a limit on the footage.
What
If
do they want
want
from
to
the
see
property
pictures.
line?
Yeah.
We're talking in the backyard of somebody's neighbor. I don't
But it's
want,
only a single story.
It's only saying.
no, but if they want a 12 pitch,
And that might match their house. Maybe that matches their house already.
But not everybody's gonna match their house. Not everybody's gonna have good taste,
No, but
to be quite honest. And it's gonna be hodgepodge.
the spirit of what we're trying to do.
I still think a lot of people. if they
We're not
don't
trying to
have
be
I think we should.
architecturally
parking places,
correct, right?
you're gonna have a lot of people that's not gonna be able to do it.
Right.
I say we kick this back to staff and let them come up with a more detailed plan. You do research, you figure out what other cities have done, you come back and tell us. Show us
Thank you,
examples.
Ed.
Give us, you know, I think.
Brian, where are you at?
Conversation here.
I think I have some pretty good direction.
you have something.
Thank you for muddy waters.
And we should have the open, expand Dora's box because it's already open for us.
But yeah,
That's-
the reality is
It's
that,
as clear as Payson Creek and the runoff.
that's right. I appreciate this so much. Okay, thanks you guys.
We'll cover it.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you for, I do think we need to
Thank
be
you for
proactive,
putting
you
out
guys.
with us.
I am so against the Big Brother telling us what we have to do. And so if we're proactive, we start dealing with it.
And if enough cities do that, then maybe we may have. Hey, did you have something for us or what's your thought?
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up.
Number 2 on the agenda is discussion of Main Street project.
If I don't have any room, I've got a huge bag. If I don't have 4 places.
And a line over so that she can have.
Well, if I pass this ordinance, I'll get you in your car.
Oh, my dad would get them, but I don't know about it.
Mayor, Council, we want to just have a quick discussion on our Main Street project. We put it out to bid. We had quite a few people looking at it, but we only received 1 bid.
Really? And it was 3 times more than we budgeted for, right?
It was more than we have budgeted for.
Not 3 times.
It was less than the original contractor that did the CMGC bid on it by about $1 million.
But it only takes us to third south. That's right.
Well, so, yeah, I'm trying to pull up the. When I launched the meeting and it. Come on, oh, there we go. Maybe. Anyway, we Travis and Jonathan, they went through the bid. We've got about $7.7 million to spend. Now that we've got the design work done and stuff.
That's with the 5 million from.
Yeah, that includes the 5 million for the infrastructure.
Some of the other grants,
Yeah.
$3.4.
Yeah, that's with the grant money and the money we put in. I'm gonna share my screen a little bit, but
Nice.
So Red Pine contractors, they're the ones that bid on it, and they bid on all of Main Street from SR 198 up to 7th South. And it was $12 million, 12.7. Jonathan and Travis went through and looked at, they kind of went through block by block. And then we have a couple of suggestions, but to do the 2-block historic Main Street with all the,
Roof,
yeah, with
With everything.
water feature, everything.
Does that include the parking lots?
No.
that does not include the parking lots. It's just the main,
What's along the road?
it's Main Street. It's about 6 million. We are proposing in the bid right here, if you look right here, the yellow, and it may be hard to see, but even the original contractor, but we propose to have string lights on Main Street, so kind of the ambiance and all along Main Street. They're charging us $70 a foot. Jonathan's been online to look at commercial grade stuff, and I think we could do it ourselves, but it's almost $200,000.
Yep, it'll save us $100.
Staff had talked about maybe taking out the water feature, that's about 250,000, but I know the council's been pretty adamant that they want the water feature in. And it really doesn't, if we saved $500,000, we still can't do another block. But with the bid the way it is, we can go from SR 198, and we can get to the 3rd South and replace pretty much everything on the blocks, right? We wouldn't be able to go 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
But does that need to be done? I mean, I think,
Eventually.
I think we fix the infrastructure that has to be done.
But we only have $5
I
million
know.
to do
So
that.
that's
We
what
won't do
I'm
it.
saying is, how bad is it? How bad is that infrastructure? I mean, those 3 blocks.
So you're gonna have 3rd South to 7th South, right? That's not gonna get done, because once you get to 8th South,
That's already been.
Central Utah updated all our utilities from there down.
that's all done.
We have to pay for it. So yeah, it's that, and Tracy, to answer your question, yeah, we need to do it. I think the way we're looking at it is we've got this much money, we'll go as far as we can. And then we've designed the whole project, the parking lots, the other streets. We're just gonna have to find money every year to see if we can do it in phases. Maybe the next year we get the infrastructure done on those, maybe my biggest priority, I'm just telling you, would be to do the parking lot behind the library next year. It's pretty bad, and it needs to be done. We couldn't do it as part of this bid money, so. The other thing that,
Do we have allocated funds for doing some of that?
yeah, we've been trying to allocate about 300,000 every year for a parking lot for the last few years, so we'll have at least 300. We might have some storm drain money because there's some Petite Creek underneath and different things like that, so we're gonna do what we can to make sure there's a project for the parking lot next year. I'm not sure about the infrastructure from 3rd up to 7th. We've got bids to see what it would cost. We just have to see if we can find some additional funds to do that. And then just kind of phase whatever this plan is, because we've got the engineering done. We just need it, as we find money, try to get this whole project done. But that's what our thoughts are. We wanted to at least let you know and have some discussion if you want to have, because we need to let them know.
Jungle to give us another $5 million.
We need to let them know that we're gonna award the bid because they need to plan for next year. The other thing, and Brian brought this up, is we've got our consultants, lobbyists that we've hired for the last couple of years, and with how much the costs have gone up, we're gonna try to meet with them next week and see if they can go to bat and get us some more money for that, because the costs have gone way up. And if we can do that, we'll get it done quicker.
So if I can,
Yeah.
I had the opportunity, I've had the opportunity to tow the bid parts. There's a couple areas where the council's thinking for a minute, let me just go there. I totally agree with the lighting. I think we can save $100,000. My direction with the savings, anything that we could save off this bid would be for parking lot. Because you got this beautiful Main Street all nice and pretty, and your back parking lots are nothing but chuckles, right? So I think we can definitely save, being conservative, we can definitely save 100,000 on the string lighting. We talked about the string lighting only going over the sidewalks, but why, as being council, we talked about why we wanted them to go over the whole street. So when we closed it off for special events, we would be able to light the whole thing, right? The other area that I looked at is the pavers, you guys. I know to some of you that's pretty dear to your heart.
That's a lot
It's
of money.
$70 a square foot, $400,000 for 6,800 square feet of pavers. We could use red colored concrete where we
Yeah,
Stamped
and they
concrete
can
would be
stamp
cheaper.
it now.
and save 200. I hurried to put some figures together. I called concrete.
I wanted to stamp concrete from the beginning.
So did I.
I would recommend just colored, cause stamped, if you ever have to dig through it again.
Yeah.
I totally agree, Travis. Totally agree. Just colored concrete, dyed so it's all the way through, not on top.
Not just the
Not
powder on
top.
top, but the
All the
dyed
way
concrete.
through.
There's really no cost.
My
difference.
estimation is that would save us about $32 a square foot, which
About
would
half of
be
it.
about $200,000.
It might even be more, cause sidewalk on here is $18 a square foot and pavers are.
58. Is it 58 or 68? 68.
58.
58 for the pedestrian ones and 79
That's
for the.
$400,000.
70, that's where I was going. So if we could take 100 off the lights and 200 off the pavers,
We could do the back.
we could do the park.
And in the same time.
What about the water feature? I know I was passionate about the water feature. but
I'm passionate about.
I am too.
I think that,
I
Water
think
feature.
Okay,
Me too.
I just wanted to throw it out there that, hey, don't
I
try to
think
keep me
we
How
happy
much
on
is
that
the
one,
water
because I,
feature? Where's the water feature at?
Well,
250.
Some of it's in this yellow right here, the air pump system, or, the pump system's 220,000. There's irrigation sprinkler or the waterproofing liner is 33, it's about 250,000.
And I know it's gonna be a little bit of upkeep, but
It's right,
that's
it's
what's.
right there, those two line items right there.
that one
What is the
works.
street
I
light?
just was
That's
up
our
at City
hometown
Creek and the
field.
water really was
What are
fun.
the street light poles?
Up
That's-
here,
That's the
Yeah.
Payson Creek.
that's for those,
Down below for $478,000.
That's the street lights with water feature,
Yeah.
speakers.
That's everything added together right there.
Whatever else.
So. The water feature is why we're doing this project. It gives us a sense of what the council wanted, right? The direction we gave the designers. The water feature needs to stay. Is everybody there?
Okay.
But I do think we can get rid of the pavers, guys, and get, I mean, I know the street department.
I'm good with colored concrete. I like colored
Okay.
concrete.
it seems like CRS engineers, there was a lot more pavers and they put a lot into concrete, but they kept some pavers. You're saying get rid of the pavers.
Yeah. Well, the line item that I tore apart was 6,872 square feet.
Yeah.
At $58 a square feet is
It's like
300 something.
400,000 pounds.
Yep.
And we can do that for between, depending on, Travis, I was trying to see if the grading, the sanding and all that other was part of the paver bid or if it was part of the.
The papers
excavation
require
bid.
additional underline.
They do.
Yeah.
And so that would all go away.
Yeah,
too.
there's
So-
separate details for the pavers on what goes under them and all that. That would be in that cost, but.
Yeah.
Would be, or it's above and beyond the $79 for the.
Well, we live in a climate where the street department was already concerned, Kent was concerned.
Well, yeah, because it even had pavers for driving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would we have it there?
Well, that was.
It looks good in those middle, those circles.
Those cross sections.
That's cross section.
It is.
We can wait till.
Are we in favor of eliminating all the pavers?
Yep.
Yeah.
Colored
I
colored
think-
concrete.
I'm good.
There you go, Dave.
Okay, we're gonna meet with the contractor tomorrow. We'll work on some of this, but
We
we'll,
ship to that, I mean, when you put it out nationwide,
we put it out everywhere we had about 15 people look at it. You have to come to a pre-bid and a lot of them came, they just ended up not bidding on it. And we-
But tell them the reason why.
Well, we reached out to a couple of the contractors we thought were going to bid, and they just said, there's too much work. UDOT's got a lot of work, and this is pretty specialized, and you have the historic streets. There's some potential liability, so it's a hard one
Would
to
you
get.
say red pine?
Yeah.
That's right.
Were they out of there?
They're American Ford. I've done a lot of work with them. They're actually a very conscientious contractor.
They're,
And why did you hold that face?
They're the same.
Because it's red pine. It's just,
You don't care for them.
they're okay, but,
Okay,
but
you
for,
leave it at
but,
that.
but for a contractor, they're a very conscientious contractor, and they're willing to listen and talk. So I'm good.
Okay.
just so you know, the White Horse that you've done with different annexations, it's their construction company. They did the contractor work on the Springside townhomes. And our staff said they didn't have any
They're
real
doing
issues.
a lot of work at American Fork near the track station.
Okay, well, thanks for your input. We just wanted some thoughts, and that's good feedback.
Dave, I have a question, you can repeat it so they know what it is, but how far up does the concrete go under the asphalt? You know,
I think it's just past the historic part.
so we're gonna get.
It might go toward that block toward the park.
So we're
I know-
getting asphalt.
Yeah, I know there was some potholing that took place. And so I think it's just maybe a quarter block past the historic Main Street
Yeah, that
portion.
sounds about right.
Kind of like a little bit past Jolly Joe's place.
Well, I think it went where the
The stream
the old
comes,
Petite Creek crosses.
where the stream
Main Street,
crosses, right there.
kind of on that diagonal and comes through, on the west side there. I think that's where it stops.
Nice thing with the 3 blocks, we get past that.
You get past that,
It's
yes.
easier after.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Rich uncle.
Well, are you gonna pause for a minute?
Yes.
Yes.
5-minute break.
Do I need to announce that? Ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna just finish with a work session. We'll pause for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll go on with the regular scheduled city council. 6 o'clock. Just ended a work session that lasted from 5 o'clock to about 10 minutes to 6. Again, thank you for being here. It's a city council meeting for December 6th, 2023. Council feature is volunteered to open this meeting with prayer.
Opposed, and we're thankful for this opportunity to have to meet here this night in capacity of Payson City Council. We're thankful for our many blessings, Father, for the many things we enjoy in our lives. We're thankful to be a part of the city and part of the great things that happen here. We ask that they'll watch over and protect us this night. They'll do those things that are pleasing unto thee, that we'll to make good decisions and do what we need to do to further the city and what's going on. And we thank thee for all that we have. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Council invited is volunteer to lead us in the Austin pledge.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before I get with the consent agenda, I'd like to thank Senator Mike McKell for being here with us tonight. He's going to speak with us, and I believe Doug Welton may also. So we'll go ahead and on to the C consent agenda. Number 1, approval of the November 15th, 2023 City Council minutes. Number 2, resolution, City Council 2024 annual meeting dates and times. Number 3, resolution, recertification of Payson City Justice Court. And number 4, resolution, Payson Power Project Evo prepaid commodity agreement and tax certificate. Unless there's any discussion, council, I'm ready for a motion.
I'm, the consent agenda is presented before us.
Okay, we have a motion been seconded, approve the consent agenda, roll call vote, starting with Council Christensen,
Yes.
Council Beecher,
Yes.
Council Carter,
Yes.
Council Postcard,
Yes.
Council Wyatt.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries. Going on to the petitions. Cities that care, Mayor's Youth Recognition Award, Shelby.
From Mount Nebo Middle School, we have Briley Bennett. You can come up here. It is amazing to see how hard Briley works to continue to move forward with such a great attitude. It has been a pleasure getting to know Briley. She has grown from being timid and shy to learning how to stand up for herself without hurting others. She is trying to give back to those who have helped her through her struggles with her health. She has organized an adopt a nurse for Christmas to give back to those who cared for her at Primary Children's Hospital. We are so happy to see her receive this honor and know that she will continue to do good things with her life. There is not anyone in the school that hasn't been positively impacted by knowing Briley and her family. Briley is such a great example to everyone and holds a special place in our hearts. Congratulations on receiving this award, Briley. From Payson Junior High, we have Anaya Nielsen. You can come up here. You are more than just a student. You are an embodiment of kindness and excellence. Your daily acts of kindness not only touch the lives of your peers, but also resonate with your teachers. Your willingness to extend a helping hand and your commitment to producing high-quality work showcase your dedication to academic excellence. Your fearlessness in seeking help when needed demonstrates a maturity and mindset that will undoubtedly lead you to great success in life. You are the epitome of a student who goes the extra mile, and we are grateful to have you at Payson Junior High. From Payson High School, we have Martina Lucero. Martina is a wonderful student, and we are so lucky to have her here at Payson High School. One of the best things about her is that she is so friendly to everyone. She literally always has a smile on her face and goes out of her way to talk to others. Martina is also so hardworking and helpful. She is someone who makes Payson High School a better and more enjoyable place to be through her hard work, her service, and her smile.
Moving on to number 2, the petitions, public forum. Anyone can speak items that are not on the agenda. Please be mindful of the time that you're taking and identify who you are as you come up to this. So we'll go ahead and open the public forum.
Hi, Mayor, City Council. My name is Lance Wilson. I've been here before. I'd like to, if I can, just take a few moments. I understand that in the audience today, we have Senator Mike McKell. And we also have, at least, I don't know Doug Welton, but Representative Welton, I'm not sure if he's not here yet. Okay. I was hoping he'd be here because I'm excited and anxious for them to see how some of the laws that are passed on a state level affect us here on a local level. In May of 2023 of this year, a law was passed and was enforced, or at least went into effect, that said that in order to protest the annexation of land inside the city, you have to have you have to be a rural resident. The definition was, and I didn't type this out in exact wording, but you had to be a rural residential property owner. And the definition of that requires that you own 1,000 acres of land. And I've talked about this in the past and how discouraging that is for landowners and property owners, residential property owners like Fernando or the Lurwells, to be able to protect their property rights from annexation. And the response I've gotten from representatives on a county level and a state level have told me, well, the state is working really hard to address the housing crisis that we're faced with here in our state. And so to help prevent delay of annexation and growth in cities, the law was tweaked or changed that would allow for easier passage of some of these annexations. We're seeing that here. It's pretty hard for us as residents to protest this annexation. It's 1,000 acres within a 40-acre proposed annexation area. And we talked about that last month, how discouraging it is. We don't own 1,000 acres. I don't know if ever in the state of Utah there's ever been an annexation into a city, a municipality of 1,000 acres. But that's how the law has been changed just recently. My point is that it almost seems like it's working in the opposite way. It seems like with this requirement of 1,000 acres and not allowing the residents who own a quarter acre or a half acre or a couple of acres to protest these annexations, it's paving the way for industrial development. It's paving the way for industrialization, and it's going right over the top of residential development, which is what we're trying to protect, is residences, residential dwellings from industrialization. So my hope tonight is that as our state representatives are here and they can see this discussion and this conversation happening, that they'll recognize that this law needs to be addressed. And I hope that our state representative, our state senator are paying attention and are willing to hear some of the concerns of their local constituents here on a very local level. I realize I can't address this issue directly, but in a way, this issue is something that can be talked about in this public forum. The second point I'd like to make is that I do understand that there's been some changes to the zoning of this area, or not zoning, but how this area would be annexed. I know that the city contacted Fernando. It also contacted Max and Noreen and discussed how there could be changes made to allow them to stay in a rural or a residential type zoning, even though everything else would stay industrial. My hope is that if that tweak or that change has been made, that will allow them an opportunity when this item is discussed to have a chance to share their feelings. And third, I'm somewhat disappointed that the council is even voting on this because of the fact that in last month's meeting, it was very much clear that we were requesting, please delay this until we don't have till we have a full council that can vote on it. And now we're voting on it.
Dangerously close to this subject. Okay?
Sorry. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lance. Appreciate it. Hey, gentlemen, is there anyone else who'd like to take advantage of public forum? Realizing that if it's on the agenda, we can't talk about it.
Mayor, council members, my name is Dwayne Clough. I've spoken from here once before, and hopefully we'll have a better temperament this evening. I would like to talk about this beautiful community that we live in. I wasn't born in Utah. I was partially raised here. I've only lived here for less than a year as a property owner. I did a little bit of reading about incorporation and annexation. And it seems as if there is a slight unbalance. When an area is up, it's been determined by the state that it's eligible for incorporation, the residents who live therein have the opportunity to vote and decide whether or not they want to become a township or a city or what have you. But when it comes to an annexation, an area can become incorporated. That area does not, prior to incorporation or annexation, does not have the opportunity to participate in city elections to choose the decision makers who are about to make a decision for annexation. Nor do they get to, nor are they asked when they are about to become part of a township or city, whether or not they would like that to happen to their property, their area, their community. Since we have some state leaders here, I wanted to bring that up. And I think that that is an unbalanced manner of incorporating or annexing the properties in our state. And hopefully that they can see a way to remedy that situation. I am grateful to the mayor and the city council. I'm sure some of the finest citizens in the community. I appreciate the work that they do and the dedication and motivation. As I said before, we moved here because we love the atmosphere of the community, and well, we kind of would like to see it stay that way. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're getting dangerously close to what we're talking about tonight, so if it has anything to do with what's on the agenda, please let me hear it.
All right, my name is Patrick Kirby. If you want address and everything, okay. So there are three things that I just wanted to talk about tonight. Landowners' rights at purchase, and then continuing, and this is inside of the city and everything. The use of the land that's already inside of the city, specifically from where Olson's Greenhouse, Liberty Safe, Schwann's Depot, Wendy's, and continuing to that development. There's a lot of open land in there that's not being used. Some of that farmland is basically useless as farmland because of how it's being managed and how it's been surrounded. So there's some open eyesores. Too close to the topic? Okay,
No, you're fine.
okay, just want to make sure,
You're fine. Just so you know, I don't want to unnecessarily restrict. So if we get close, we're close.
okay, yeah, no, and I'll flirt with lines, but I'll try not to cross. Okay, roadway safety is another topic that I wanted to talk about. I have a good friend who lives just to the south of town, Bob Bloomer. He's not here. I'm not trying to drop his name, but I go to his house quite often. And I go through that four-way stop over by Wendy's, past some of the condos that are there, past some of the developments. And I haven't been able to take that road in a long time because it's not safe. There's driveways that back right out into a road where you're going 40, supposed to be 25, but I know what happens there. Going 40, people have to black out, and now there's new development right against it. So to me, roadway safety wasn't planned when that was decided upon. So I'm concerned about that. Right, and now what's happening in that area, more is going into that area, which is fine. Land is gonna get used, it's gonna get developed. But what's the long-term plan? Because that's not safe. And how many school buses go down that road? That's not me as just as a grumpy guy, that's our children. Bus stops on that road, how many spots? Road safety is a big concern. But back to my first thing that I want to talk about. Landowners, and when you purchase land, you're tied into what's there. If I buy a house inside of Payson city limits, I'm tied to what's there. Now, if I want to change that, I have that right, that ability to push for a change. And 100% I respect that right. I respect that right of a landowner to say, I would like to do something different with my property. But I also have to respect the right of someone to say, I don't want someone else making my choices for me. Too close to the subject?
No,
Okay.
just get to your point, and if you would, you take
So-
one bit of time, go ahead and.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, let's make sure that as we develop and grow Payson, 'cause it's a wonderful community, it's a wonderful town, that we develop it and grow it into a city where families can live and grow and develop. Do we need to all be able to work within the city limits? No. If I raise a hand, how many people?
But please don't do that right now, just finish. your
Okay.
sentence.
Then I just say, thank you for your time and think about the rights of all the landowners.
Thank you for your comment. And I would request, if you would, it's not proper to call him to clap. I understand you agree with him, but in a city council meeting, that's not proper. If you would. Anyone else? Again, I have to remind you, if it's too close, I'm being real liberal here, folks. If it's too close to what we're talking on the agenda tonight, I'm gonna ask you to step down.
First, I just want to agree with Lance. We also, Bart Wilson, I drive up and down the corridor on I-15 and I just see certain cities that are becoming stand-up concrete buildings. And we live in Payson, that's a homegrown city, and I would hope that when you people vote, that you vote with the common sense and think about the things that, do you really want Payson to be just a bunch of stand-up concrete buildings, just like Springville and Spanish and some of the other areas are at? You know, and then I think about the water issue thing. I mean, we all live in a drought and we keep building all these concrete buildings and taking the water. I mean, what are we gonna do? It's dropping the aquifer on all the wells. I would hope that when you vote, that you just think of the way Payson City was brought up and developed and founded as a community that's close and has farming and close-knit people. And you start developing it and letting these high-rise concrete tip-up buildings, we're gonna look just like the rest of the Wasatch Front. And do we really want that? Do you guys really want that? To be part of our community, to look out there and see all the concrete stand-up buildings? I don't.
Or you're getting awful close.
I know, but
Please
geez
don't
almighty,
make me ask you to say
how
that.
can you not get close when you're passionate about something, you know, about the
understand.
city?
But I've got to take care of the meeting. Okay?
So I would just hope, and I'm the same way with Lance is saying, you know, why all of a sudden has the voting been moved up? But, okay, thanks.
Hi, my name's Tahira Carroll. I live on in the houses that are going to be affected by the possible annexation. So I'm gonna stay away from the topic. I'm gonna talk about some other things. We moved here from the city because we wanted my daughter and my son to have the farm life. We wanted to get together as a family and ride horses, and it's been amazing. It's been beautiful. In fact, I'm just gonna say, when we first started to go to the United States Hunter Jumper shows, we were one of the few people that were going from Payson. This year in November, I don't know if you guys know this, in Vegas, they had the United States Hunter Jumper championships, and we had about, Patrick can correct me, but about 10 kids from Payson that went. And we represented Payson really, really well. My daughter is now a national champion in one of the higher, and that's why we moved here. So I'm just gonna say that is why we moved here, for that lifestyle, because we couldn't get that in Provo, we couldn't get that in the big city, okay? You know, you guys are gonna vote when you're gonna vote. And I understand that progress happens, but I'm going to say Payson is a small town. We value small town families. We value going to 4-H. We value riding. It's fun to see kids hanging out together doing that. You lose that when you move, when you change some certain things about how the city is. I know I can't really go into it, but I will just say this much, the road in front of my house cannot handle industrial traffic. The day when you were voting last time, literally that day, that afternoon, there was an accident because there were cars parked on both sides of the street. The street cannot handle that kind of traffic. So I'm just gonna say, if you're planning to move ahead with progress, then you better be ready to be widening streets, doing way more to handle that kind of traffic. Because right now, some days, I have to tell the people that live across the street to not park on my side because I can't pull my trailer out because there's not enough room. So I'm just talking about infrastructure, just simple. If you're gonna do progress, you need to have the money to back that progress up. And it's not gonna happen because one person once has decided that area needs to be industrial. But I'm just gonna leave that at that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. At some point in time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna cut this off, and I don't unnecessarily want to do that, but please, this will be the last.
Okay, I'm Susan Lester, and I live on 9600 South, or the runway, as we've started calling it. I wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but something happened to me this morning, and I just wanna let you know, I'm on my way to work. There were two trucks, it's hard to explain, but there were two big trucks trying to turn onto 9600, and I was trying to turn to go to work, and I got caught in between the two of them, and I knew what was gonna happen. The first one went, and anyway, I ended up going off into the weeds because the second truck driver didn't see me. And he apologized profusely, and I said, it's okay, I get it, I saw it coming, I know it's fine. But now, so we're encouraging people to break the law coming off that exit. And now we're taking our lives in our hands to try to get on Benjamin Road. And who does that? What city does that? My other thing is, I mean, I was a 911 dispatcher for Provo for 15 years. 2 times we predicted there was gonna be a problem at an intersection. And I said, somebody's gonna have to die before they do something about it. And both times somebody died. And thankfully, they had it on a recorded line where we had called the streets in the middle of the night to let them know both times. And Provo City ended up paying, I'm surprised it's still called Provo because of what they paid out to these people. So I guess that's my question. Does somebody have to die before we pay attention? And I know the money's already been allocated. And so what's the rush? Can't we fix the problem first before we look at building industrial that frankly is gonna end up as weeds and fences? We all know. And that's what's gonna grate Payson.
I appreciate your comments. Ladies and gentlemen, I know many of you are here, you want to say things, we've already entertained many of you. There is no public hearing tonight, and I've been very generous. To build a strong foundation. I am gonna go ahead and close the public forum, unless there's somebody online. No, the public forum's closed. Okay, we'll move on to number 3, staff reports. Any staff that would like to report to us?
Just a couple of things, Mayor and Council. I just lost the date, sorry. December 18th, mark that on your calendar. We were gonna have a council dinner. I'll send you an invitation on that. It'll be here in the council chambers. So that's one item. Appreciate all those that helped out yesterday. We passed out employees hams and turkeys, and I appreciate those that helped, and we had a pretty good turnout. So that was great. Just wanted to say thanks for that, and I appreciate the support.
Thank
I don't know.
That was so awesome.
Yeah.
Like, my
He does
kids
that,
just totally love that, and my daughter says that is the best Grinch she's ever seen. And the way he responded to the kids, I mean, she's seen a lot of Grinches.
He
She
didn't
was-
like Linda.
She was amazed.
like me.
So whoever got him, hey.
He was really good, and the thing that was awesome is even the little toddlers, 1, 2-year-old, they'd sit on his lap, and usually they're scared of him.
I'm
But
scared of you.
I know Linda was scared of him. Anyway, it was good. Yeah, he gave away onions instead of candy canes.
Any other staff would like to take advantage of the time? If not, we'll go ahead and move on to council, reports, Council Hyde.
No, I said what I needed to say about it. That was awesome.
Mayor, I first want to take an opportunity that the staff that's inside. Week in and week out, we as a council depend on, whether it be Robert and Jill, whether it be Dave, whether it be Jason, Travis. You guys don't know how much we come to depend upon you in having the information, having the documentation that we need. I've always taken a moment to thank staff, and tonight I want to thank the inline staff that's here in the building that just makes us look good. Thank you. Mayor, I also have a letter that I previously asked that I be allowed to read. Dear citizens, neighbors, and friends of Payson City, I've been truly blessed and rewarded serving as a Payson City Council member. Together, we have accomplished great things with more to come. Recently, while considering various developments and proposals, public comment and discussions were taken. During those comment periods, negative and defaming comments were noted, of which I made my own. And I am not proud of them, and I apologize if I have offended anyone. I conclude that when we attempt to vilify, demean, or make unfounded accusations of each other, staff, and those petitioning the council for consideration, we do an injustice to our own integrity and character. Growth is inevitable. We can take the attitude of keeping our heads in the sand, or we can be part of how we grow. I am proud of our staff, planning commission, city council, and citizenry in being proactive in the growth discussions by preparing for growth that is surely to come. I invite all to become active participants as our general plan and other decision-making documents are updated and created. May we all exercise civility and respect as we move forward as a city and neighboring friends. Thank you for your consideration. Bob Prostard, City Council Member.
Thank you all. Council Carter.
If I had a letter to read, it would be the same thing that Bob just read. I am so thankful that I've had the opportunity to get to know all the employees that have been here and work with you. I'm the old lady here, but you've all treated me so kindly, and I appreciate every last one of you. And I'll still be around. But thank you. That's all I can say.
Council Beecham.
So, but I want to thank everyone for putting up with me for the time I've been on the council, and I appreciate that. I thoroughly enjoy working with the staff and everyone here. So thank you for your time and consideration. So
Chris?
I don't know what to say here. I apologize, I was not here last time we met. I had a vacation that had been planned since January, so. But it doesn't mean that the things that were said, I didn't listen to. The things that were talked about didn't strike close to home. I know that everybody's passionate and they're always bringing up the little problems that are there, when the solution to some of those problems is to move forward with developments, which becomes a real problem. I know over by the new townhouses where everybody talks about, and that little tiny frontage road that's not the main road comes up constantly. You must hear about it once a week. But the resolution to that is for us to take a chunk of property under eminent domain and put the road in where it belongs. Because the road that actually belongs is a 5-lane highway west of there, about a quarter of a mile. That takes all that traffic off that road that we constantly hear people complain about when everybody comes back in and complains that we're not moving forward in the direction that we need to be. We have bills to pay, sewers to fix, power that needs to come in. The only way that we can move forward and fix these roads is through development. The developers have to put in the roads adjacent to their property where they develop. I can't go in and tell people what to do. That's not my job. When somebody comes and asks us as a council if we're okay following the plan that we paid close to $500,000 to have put together by professionals in the last 6 years, which I was part of. I know it was a little overdue, but we pushed forward. We got that plan done so that we were prepared. We had the areas laid out that we felt would be best used for the development to go the direction it needed to go. And to have, as Bob said, our name slandered and us feel like we're not doing what we need to do, it is painful. I tell everybody every day, they say, how do you do such a thankless job? And I say, well, I strive to make sure nobody's happy. Because if somebody comes away from a conversation happy, then I didn't do my job right. We have to come to a balance somewhere in the middle that progress can move forward, but those that are still there can enjoy the lifestyle that they've had. And I'm seeing head shaking, no, but that's where it's at. And I apologize if anybody's offended or upset over this, but I want you all to know that we've done our best and it pulls at our heartstrings everything. So, and next election, you can vote for us because you'll be part of Payson City.
Yeah.
So we are not.
Hey, that's enough, that's enough, that's enough. Hey,
Ma'am, don't flip me off. That is obscenity.
Hey,
Officer, can you remove her from this room?
that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Okay, thank you. Moving on to reports from our elected officials. Doug and Mike, which one's gonna come first?
I don't know, is it?
What are you gonna do a team beat?
I'll come first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't take what he's gonna talk about, or does he have anything?
You know, I'm actually glad to be here and I'm glad to be here tonight. And I'm gonna address the public, but I want to address the city council first. This time of year, we always have changes and we have elections and elections matter, and you've had some really good people that have served here. So for those that are not coming back, thank you. One thing the public should know about your city council is every year, this city council engages on Capitol Hill. I can't remember since I've been elected a time where I didn't see Mayor Wright on Capitol Hill in this council. They're very, very active, and I think that's important. I thought about a lot of things I was going to say tonight, but I'm actually going to change what I talk about, and I think it's important. And I appreciated your comments, Lance, and I sat here and I looked at the legislation that was run, and I found the bill. It was a bill Representative White had run. By the time that bill came through, it was a fifth substitute. They'd worked in an affordable housing group for a long period of time. They had a work group where they worked for about a year before that bill actually came to the legislature. And I looked at my emails, and one thing I didn't see, and not that I'm throwing anybody under the bus, I didn't see opposition. And I think think it's always important to be involved in the legislative process. I know that bill came through with, in the end, it was 5 substitutes. It was 5th substitute by the time that bill had actually passed and passed unanimous in the Senate. It looked like there were 11 no votes in the House as it came through, and I voted for it. And I'm gonna rat you out, Doug, because you voted for it as well, because I looked it up. But one of the issues that I always talk about, and it's certainly in the context of House Bill 406, and that's what it was 5th substitute that passed, is growth. And people ask me, what is the challenge in South Utah County? And my answer is always the same. It's always growth. And how do we do it responsibly? The mayor will tell you, the mayor of Sanico will tell you, the mayor of Spanish Fork will tell you, the mayor of Springville will tell you that one of the things that we constantly try to do in the legislature is look for corridor preservation. How do we preserve these corridors to make sure that as we grow, we do it responsibly? And I don't think anybody here wants to grow, but I mean, I'm going to tell you my background, and I think it's important. I've got 4 kids. I hope all 4 of my kids at some point can live in Utah. I look at the cost of housing, and it's scary. It's scary to me, but I also have a farm, and I grew up super rural, and I was really fortunate to grow up rural. We had about 100 acres, and my dad was a dentist, but he was a hobby farmer, which meant I got to take care of the horses. I got to take care of the cows. And years ago in Spanish Fork, I was able to buy the farms next to Grandpa's farm and my dad's farm, and I've continued that. And I've got a farm in Spanish Fork River Bottoms, and I understand the pressures of growth. And I'm going to tell you something super personal to me. I race horses, and I raced horses. And over the weekend, I lost probably my very best mare, and broke my heart. And we thought it was colic. We couldn't figure it out. She had a laceration up on her neck, and not enough that it bled. It wasn't a fence. It wasn't barbed wire or anything like that. We couldn't figure it out. Thankfully, the horse was assured. Really, really nice horse, arguably my best horse. And when we looked at her and we sent her to the state lab, we had to do that for the insurance. What they found is it was actually one trauma in her neck. And I think it matters. And I live right on the river trail, right in Spanish Fork, where there's tremendous growth. And when I hear the public, what is the issue down here? It is growth, and it impacts me personally. And do I know that my horse got startled and ran? I mean, what likely happened is, we've talked to that, she likely ran into the drill pipe and caused extreme hemorrhaging in her neck, and that's actually why she passed away. Do I know it's because somebody on the trail startled her? No. Do I love growth where I'm at? No. But I guess my point to the story is, I think it impacts all of us, and I think it's personal for you, it's personal for me. And as a legislator, one of the things that we look at is, how do we do it responsibly? And growth was on the list of things I was going to talk about tonight, so I'm glad I had a chance to do it. But as we do it, one of the things I know, as I've worked with your city council, is they care. The mayor cares deeply, Doug Welton cares deeply, and we do take your calls. I put my cell number on not only my legislative card, my law office card has my cell number. I encourage my clients to talk to me personally, because I do care. But as we look at these issues, what is the big issue in South Utah County? It's clearly growth. There is no question. How do we do it responsibly? And it's the same. Your issue in Payson is the same issue that we're dealing with in Spanish Fork. It's the same issue that Mayor Olson's dealing with in Sanico with his interchange, with the traffic backed up. It's the same issue that Mayor Packard has in Springville with a project that's right on I-15, and it's a struggle, and we are doing the best we can. Let me just wrap up by saying, I have 4 kids. I'm part of the problem. I want them to live here. I wish there was a scenario where we just say, look, the lifestyle I grew up with in Farron, Utah is going to be the lifestyle I live with on the Wasatch Front. And it's just not reality. We want our kids to live here. So the question is, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with it responsibly? And what I would urge everybody, I mean, my cell number is public. I can give it to anybody who wants to reach out to us. I think it takes a team to legislate, and that's the important thing we have in South Utah County. We have a team. We work well together. But I'm going to leave it at that. I thank you for being here again. To the council members that that are leaving, thank you for your wonderful years of service. To the new council members, I don't know if you're here, I would assume you're here listening in. Congratulations and welcome to the team.
Yes, one question.
Yes.
Anything other than growth on the radar, you think is necessary, such that the council should maybe do? Or maybe something, the bills that you're proposing or?
That is a great question. I mean, I'm fighting all sorts of fights. I mean, my big fight, I mean, I've been fighting social media. I'm really worried about mental health of our kids. I really, truly am. I think we've got a serious problem. I look at education. We have a lot of social issues that we fight. To me, I'm more interested in making sure a fourth grade student knows how to read and that we're tackling mental health. That's something that if I looked at my schedule today and the things that I've worked on, I've been on the phone with drafting attorneys all day long, spent a lot of time on social media, and that's something we're working on. I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna let Doug go and then come back and we'll answer questions and I'll come back to that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's good to see you and to the public. I didn't realize what was on the agenda when I came, but I appreciate, like Mike said, we appreciate public input. It's a difficult job. One thing I'd like to say real quick before jumping into the issues, I just want to say thank you to anybody who throws their hat in the ring. It is a very difficult thing to sit and to try to make very difficult decisions that are very personal. And so whether I agree with you or disagree with you, that we had 9 candidates that ran for city council, great people. Some of them I agreed with more than others, but that takes a lot of courage. And so thank you for what you do. I'd also like to give a thanks to Kirk and Linda and Bob who are leaving the council. I appreciate your service and I appreciate your time. Linda and I came in together and she's done great work and I appreciate her and her good work. Anne is going to do a great job as a council person. Brian's going to do a great job and so is Ryan Rowley, who's not here today. So I encourage you to reach out to them. One thing I'd like to say, just talking about issues like this as well, when I was on city council here 3 years ago is when I left, we had found out that we had several plans that hadn't been updated. In fact, at the time we found out that our sewer plan had never been updated. Like we didn't have a master plan. And so one of the big issues that we had was to try to make sure all that was in place because we had growth coming and to make sure that we did it well so we didn't have this poor planning with roads. And sometimes we get it right and sometimes we get it wrong. But that was an important step to make sure that things were taken care of as well as they possibly could. Growth is kind of a hard thing to figure out. Sometimes there's weed patches there and you're like, when are they going to develop? And we've been trying to get the pit out in front of Stadium Cinemas developed forever and ever and ever. And we'd like that not to be a weed patch. And we worked on that. Anyway, one of the reasons why I ran for city council or not city council, for the state legislature is because I saw the growth we had coming and I thought it was important to have a good partnership with the state and the local level and the citizens and the councils to make sure we have that communication because the growth is coming in South Utah County and Cedar Valley. That's where the growth is going to come the most. And we want to make sure that we don't look like Lehigh, not to throw them under the bus, but I agree with whoever made the comment here. We live here because we like our lifestyle. We like the open space. We like the Payson way of life, so to speak. Like Mike said, I have 4 kids as well too, and they need a place to live, and that's a difficult challenge because there wasn't enough supply to meet the demand, and so those are difficult tasks that we try to address. Going to talk about issues now, or let me just talk about a couple of bills that I'm looking at as far as getting upcoming building bills. I don't know. So right now, the bills haven't been published yet, and unless the legislator says we're going to open up this bill for the public, I don't even know what they are. So I've heard rumors. There's a lot of education bills. There's a lot of voter integrity bills. There's I don't know, but we try to listen. We try to hear back when those bills came through that we passed. I try to reach out to mayors and managers and anyone I knew, and they'd worked with the League of Cities and Towns that try to present the cities, and it was it's a lot of work, a lot of compromise on that. So anyway, bills that I'm working on. I've been working on a bill with Chief Bishop to try to get some additional funding for forensics units, particularly Utah County has, I think, enough sometimes, but sometimes they need to loan their materials or their tools out to like local entities like Payson City, but also the surrounding counties as we grow, they don't have enough access to forensics equipment. And so that makes it very difficult for them to process crimes in a meaningful manner to try to find where we're at. So I'm working on that. I've got an insurance damages bills where we're trying, it's a consumer protection bill. We're finding that insurance companies on claims $20,000 or $30,000 or less are chronically underpaying or not paying those bills. So if you have grandma and grandpa and their roof is ruined and it's $20,000 to fix it, insurance companies aren't paying for it. And so we're trying to find a way to remedy that to make sure that we have consumer protections and your roof gets fixed if that's what they agreed to do. I think that's an important thing. Recycling is one I've been working on for a long time. Hopefully city residents are seeing their biannual recycling report where the recycling material was taken. Now we're looking to go to the facilities to see like what is your contamination stream, so you can see like the report. And we report back on water, report back on everything else. So if you're going to pay for recycling, you want to make sure that you know what you're recycling, that your material is getting recycled. And that's going to be important to me. And if it's not, then you need to know that as well so you can make an informed decision. Two other bills real quick. I'm working on a bill to deal with the quarries out on West Mountain and the traffic that's coming out there on the trucks. That's a difficult bill. There's a lot of protections in place already, but we're trying to find some way that we can protect the residents that live out there from all the trucks. I can't remember, you said gets trapped in between trucks. I've heard that. So we're trying to see if we can find a solution that's workable where we can address the growing pains, the cost of building materials, and make sure that you're safe out on your roads. Last one, this is a big one. I'm trying to work on some issues. So as you know, we had some shooting scares or hoaxes in our high schools at the end of last year. Spanish Fork, there was a call that 6 kids had been shot in the school. And Salem Hills High School was locked down and surrounding schools were locked down. It caused a lot of stress. And so part of that is last year we appropriated $75 million to harden schools, put in bulletproof glass and all of those things. But those are all important measures, and I think we should do those, but they're also a little bit reactive. I'm trying to find ways that we can change behavior at the base level. And so government's not good at that. That's not our job. That's a family job. But we're trying to find ways that we can support and give education and help to like address those issues. Mental health is a big issue. And if we can address those at the root level, then hopefully we don't have to deal with those other issues later on. So that's kind of a big one. That's kind of murky right now, still working on details, but those are a few of the bills that I'm working on.
Any questions there, council? What's up? Any questions, council?
You know I do.
What you got?
This very issue and other issues that we've dealt with. We continue to deal with issues that are being taken off the table of the city council. We have our hands tied, if you will. And it seems like, Doug, you and Mike have helped tie our hands. I'm concerned, and I say that respectfully, but the other night I was told that we couldn't, that the council will no longer make decisions. Once there is a zone set, whatever that zone allows, we have to allow it to go, but it doesn't even come before city council again. That's very concerning to me.
So you can't change zones?
We can change zones.
Okay.
But whatever lies in that zone and is presented to us, we have no say anymore. It becomes a staff decision, and council just it just gets approved. And council all of a sudden has mud on their face when a citizen says to us, hey, did you know they're gonna build 1,400 units? And I go, well, I'll check with the city. And now I'm being hypothetical, but this is where it's going. This is what is gonna happen with this law. I call up the city and I say, hey, you guys, did you guys approve 1,400 units down there? Well, yeah, it's in the zone that you guys created. I go back to the constituent and I say, you know, it's approved in that zone, I'm sorry. Whereas it used to come before the council and based on the merits of the project, we could either deny it or approve it, or make changes to modify it to fit the citizens and the needs of the city. So I just feel like that, you know, the very thing that you guys talk about, that the federal government's imposing on you, the state is imposing on us. And I wonder where the dialogue is, where we can, now I'm not gonna be sitting here in 2 weeks, right?
Sure.
But I'm still worried about, because I become a normal citizen again. Not that I'm not a normal citizen, I'm an outspoken citizen right now. But I become a normal citizen again with not much of a voice. But the outcry is from the council, and I'm just, hopefully I'm being the soundboard for not only these that are here, but for the new ones that are elected, is it just seems like our hands are more tied now than ever before.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. There were a bundle of 6 bills that came before, I think there's 6 bills. I think there were 6 bills that came before. 6. Anyway, the Representative White worked on, and he worked on with the League of Cities and Towns and the realtors and home builders, and they spent a lot of time working on those. And part of that is, at the end of the day, the League of Cities and Towns, which is
us,
you,
yep,
said that these were negotiated to a place where you were comfortable with. That's the word that we got back. So now that could be like, there's everybody, right? So like 75% said yes and 25% said no.
Comfortable is it?
Yeah, so that's kind of a difficult thing. I did vote against one of those bills and got a lot of grief for it, and I'm okay with that. But I agree, like I'm a firm believer of government closest to the people, and you should be able to make those decisions. I think from my perspective, my remembering of my time on the councils, it's pretty hard to tell somebody no once the zoning is there. Like, you know, people used to always get mad at us when Cafe Rio came in. They said, "Oh, what are you opening up another Mexican restaurant for?" And the response is I can't tell them no because it's zoned for restaurants, right? And so there's some things that we could work on like design features and structures and things like that. But like if it's zoned for a restaurant and they meet that zoning, even in the past, we can't tell them no. So.
One other, if I could, Mike, do you want to address that?
Well, I think Doug brought up a really good point, and I think there is a good interaction with cities in the legislature. And I'm on speed dial with Mayor Wright, but I listen to the League of Cities and Towns. I think it does matter. I think local control does matter, and it is a team effort. But I mean, we did have some bills, but we don't set general plan. And I know what Doug's talking about. If it's in the general plan, you can't then deny it. And progress does move forward. But obviously legislature didn't come down and set general plans. But if there's issues like that you're worried about, always call us. I mean, I hear from Cameron Deal constantly from the league on behalf of the cities, and where I'm at, I'm in a position where I got to be responsive to Mayor Olson, which I try to be, and Mayor Wright, Mayor Mendenhall, and Mayor Packard. But it's good to hear from councils as well.
One more while you're on the hot seat.
Might bring Doug back.
Last year, we was elated that we were awarded $109 million from the state for the freeway.
Yeah.
Thank you for your efforts. Yeah, we thank you so much.
Doug, come up here. This is good.
And for that, I'll champion you. But since January of last year, great. We haven't heard nothing. Where is there any progress? Where are we at? Do we know if there's more funding coming?
That is above my pay grade, for sure. I just know we gotta fund it. So what he's talking about, just so you guys know, it's an interchange to the north end of the county. This was an interchange that was actually fairly low down the list, and politically it was extremely low, and it didn't look like it was gonna get funded. Mayor Wright was relentless in fighting to get this interchange in place. Obviously, if you look at that Main Street interchange, lots of hazards, lots of accidents. It's a problem, and it was needed. But one of the things that helped, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due, the mayor was relentless, and there was a donation from the church. And because of that effort and that donation, we were able to take that and we put it in the bill of bills at the end, and we're able to bump it up. But I think it's exciting for Payson City. All right.
Somebody, hold my finger.
I'll go ahead and answer that one and say, we actually have been dealing really closely with UDOT on that money, and things are progressing, and we're just really appreciative of it. And so things are happening.
Thank you.
They're doing some survey work, because they gotta have the exact amount to be donated. And I think it's close, either the end of this month or the first part of January.
I think it's a fair question though, and the pace of government is not always quick enough. We got the interchange funded by the hospital in Spanish Fork, and I kept hearing it's gonna be breaking ground in the summer. We were way over budget and had to put in more funding. And it's still, I mean, I'm told they're breaking ground, but sometimes it's a little bit slower. I know the backstory of it, yeah.
Okay. Thanks, you guys.
We appreciate you very much. We know we put you on the spot, and I guess that's where you're at. So thank you very much.
Just real quick, I just want to echo, Mayor Olson and Mayor Wright are the most active mayors up there, and they're looking out for you. They're doing good work.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to action item E, ordinance request to extend the municipal boundaries to encompass the property included in the proposed RNC #2 annexation at approximately 900 north and 400 west. Michael, you have the presentation for us.
Okay, so I think you're all quite familiar with this proposal. This is the annexation expansion area with the different parcels there. These are all of the individual property owners that would be a part of that. You can see at the bottom, the two that were non-petitioners in the annexation. And again, the total acreage that would be affected there. You can see the approximate addresses where the intersects there as well. So it was asked at the last council meeting to talk a little bit about the future land use map. And so that's why I'm showing this here. You can see the area circled in red. That's the area that's being considered for annexation. There are 4 colors there, with industrial being purple, business park being the pink color, commercial being that kind of salmon reddish color, and high density residential being the gold. So part of the reasons for staff's recommendation has to do with these top 2 bullet points, being that there's geographical changes coming to the area, including that realignment of Main Street that was talked about earlier with some of those funds that have been appropriated. There's also present land use trends there in the area that are suggestive that this area is most suited to be developed as the applicant is proposing. But the last 2 bullet points I want to focus on a little bit. Council is welcome to zone these parcels upon and if the annexation is approved, as it is shown in this future land use map. But they also have the prerogative that they can potentially zone these parcels in the way that they feel best is most appropriate for those parcels. This is what's being requested, and we're also showing some adjacent zoning of what's within the city. So the area in red is the proposed annexation area.
Those areas outside of there, the gray is zoned light industrial right now. The pink is zoned commercial, and the orange is zoned high density residential. And then this is a lower density residential, but still relatively dense. And so the request, after hearing from council and individuals from this previous meeting, was to modify the request, and this is, I believe, the Clegg property, or no, sorry, the Lurwell property, and this is the Carroll property. So those two would be the request to change that zoning to the A5H zoning, which stands for Annexation Holding Zone, and it's permissible to do anything and everything permissible within that A5 zoning boundaries. All the other properties are still being proposed as light industrial. So a few comments here and information. After last council meeting, staff did a little bit of homework. Robert actually went and met with the Carrolls and Lurwells and shared the annexation agreement with them, talked with them. Also, we put together that proposed zone map that you saw on our previous slide. And that proposed zone map is showing those changes to allow for the A5H and the light industrial. And with this being said, staff feels as if this request is consistent with the city's general plan. It promotes the prosperity and facilitates orderly growth within the city. So with those above actions that we have done, those top two bullet points, staff recommends approval of the annexation request with these following conditions. The first bullet point at the bottom there was already there previously, with the applicant sponsor paying for the 421 transfers from SESD. The second bullet point there is that staff recommends that city council, if they do annex this, that they would consider the property and determine what they feel is most adequate for the zones that of those parcels. Our recommendation is as what the applicant sponsor is doing, but you could do anything that you choose is most appropriate. And if you do so, then just state reasons for why you would recommend that. That is my presentation. Is there any questions?
That's a discussion. If there's no council discussion, I'm ready for a motion. Do you want to discuss?
I don't know. I'm just, I don't know where to go here. I do feel sorry. I need to apologize for my outburst. It really does strike home, and it's something I'm passionate about, and I worry about everybody. And so it's tough. I don't know, is this, Robert, you talked to the homeowners, is this a better way to go with the A5H? I feel way better with it being an A5H because of the discussion that Bob brought up. Because if we zone it industrial, there's not, once it's sold, then anything can go in there. But that A5H is a really good way to hold on to that until a later time when it needs to be rezoned.
So that was kind of staff's thinking. Let me be very, very clear. I met with Mr. Lurwell and I met with Mrs. Carroll. They didn't give any indication of, yes, this is great, or yes, this is no, anything like that. We provided information. I haven't heard anything else from them so far, but one additional reason that we wanted to do this and to just throw that out there was there are probably some significant tax advantages for them remaining A5H. You know, the indication that I have received from them as we chatted a little bit, they enjoy where they live. They enjoy their way of life. They enjoy the property that they have and want to continue that as long as they want to. This allows a little bit more assurance of continuing that lifestyle. It doesn't change what's being requested around them, obviously. But for the duration of where they're going to be in that property, if you were to zone it this way, they would have those tax advantages. And there's no question on what they can do with that property for the time being. If in the future they wanted to sell or change or whatever, somebody could just, whomever is the new property owner, if they wanted to continue that use, they would be welcome to do so. If they wanted to change that use, they would go through the same traditional method of coming, asking for a zone change, and coming before the city council.
Any further discussion, council? Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'm ready for a motion.
Wait a minute. I'm getting the impression that the Carrolls and the Lurwells.
This is not
But where this,
public hearing, we've already had that.
where this affects us directly with that change.
Council?
Change, we were under the impression we'd be able to address.
Council?
I don't know where you got that impression from. Sorry, I'm the city attorney, and you were all given a chance last time, back in November, to express your influence and express your feelings about this zone change or annexation or whatever it was with your regard to your property. If Robert stated anything that was wrong about him meeting with the two property
No,
owners.
he didn't, but it was going to all be light industrial before, right?
Correct.
So something changed, right?
Yeah,
From
well,
November, from November.
yeah, well, I can explain it this way. That not all the property owners wanted to be put into the industrial zone. Many of you don't even live in this proposed annexation. That's the other issue. But the couple that do and did not want their property changed to an industrial zone. That's what staff recommended, and that's why it was tabled from the last time. Now, the public hearing was closed, so that's why you can't. But my understanding is that staff did change that so that you can maintain whatever you're doing, farming the property as of now, it would maintain that should this be annexed.
Okay, council, explanation, I am waiting for a motion.
I move that we annex the RNC number 2 annexation with the proposed zone changes that has been outlined by Michael, with the light industrial and everything but the 2 parcels, those would come in as A5H, finding that this annexation meets the policy goals and objectives of Payson City General Plan and promotes the general plan of the city.
We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second it. Do we need to add anything else?
Okay. A motion is seconded, roll call vote starting with Council Hyatt,
Yes.
Council Rosegard,
Abstain.
Council Carter,
Yes.
Council Beecher,
Yes.
Council Christensen.
Abstain.
Okay, vote carries. 3 votes for. Thank you. Moving on to number 2, ordinance amendments to the general plan, specifically the Spring Creek area specific plan. Robert?
Thank you.
Let me just get set up here. I shared all of this last time, so we're not going to go through the entire Spring Creek area specific plan again, but I just want to say that I appreciate all of the effort that has been here. This has been a long process, and that's important. Planning for the future should take a little bit of time, and that's okay. Just as a reminder, this is what a specific plan is. A specific plan is not a new zoning map. This does not include annexation. This is not a change to any current zoning ordinance. And it doesn't require property owners to change how they use their property. That changes with property owners as they want to, as things change, circumstances, all of those things. I think that's just really important to understand. This is the future land use map that was rehashed and rehashed and rehashed, and this is where it finally landed. I want to be really clear here and say that not having it exactly the way you want doesn't mean that you haven't been heard. It's just part of the iterative process of coming to an agreement on what should be really presented to you as the city council.
If I may, when you say it's been hashed and rehashed and hearing comment, would you tell us who those are? Who's hashed it, who's rehashed it?
Oh,
who's made comments?
Oh, good question. So initially I even before I was here, there was kind of an initial meeting with the city council and the planning commission to understand direction, understand directive. From that, a steering committee was formed, and there was an open house at that time where their public input was sought. The steering committee went forward with a few things presented at another open house situation. And then from that point, there was additional need for additional steering committee members, and those were brought on board. And we had, still here, how many meetings do we have?
I don't know, the times changed, now we went to one, so I couldn't tell.
Oh, Maggie, you went to more than that. Come on. And we met several times through that steering committee process, and then had a work session with the community, went back, presented a few things, went back again to the steering committee 3 more times, and then this is the result of that. And then about a month ago was our final open house question and answer period. And then we've had a public hearing and public comments since then.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
These are just the different uses that are presented in this, but the one thing that I just want to iterate from this plan is, and what you see here is, this is the 500-foot level of implementation of the general plan for this area. The general plan for this area calls for low-density residential development, some ag housing type of development, and all of those types of housing developments are included in this plan. On the bottom of the screen, you can see that the gross density for this entire area is calculated at 1.78 units to the acre. And then the net density for the area is 2.54 units to the acre. When the general plan calls for low density, that unit calculation is 2 to 5 units to the acre. So yeah, we're definitely on the lower end of what the general plan calls. I'm going to skip through some of these. These are again, a lot of infrastructure was calculated from this plan because we need to understand where our infrastructure needs to be put as the area potentially develops.
Can I ask a quick question? I wasn't here last time, and I apologize for that. But if you back up to the plan and map that you had. So the area we just talked about, was just voted on, you were explaining the business, the, density up in that corner, that little triangle, 440, 4400 west, 400 north, right there. This overlays that as all light industrial, and I think we should put those in there the way they were drawn on your other map that he had. Am I making sense?
The Lurwells and the Carrolls.
Well, the Lurwells and the Carrolls are in an agricultural holding zone.
This is not the same area.
You're right. Well, no, the 400 north.
You gotta go,
Oh,
you gotta go.
okay, thank you.
That's over here a ways.
You're right. I apologize for poking the bee's nest.
No, and I think that's a good point, is that I think there's been some crossing of understanding here.
North, that's where, Wilson's Garden Shop. is.
Correct.
Okay. When you get those county and city addresses intermingled, I get confused.
So one good boundary here, just to reference is, this is the railroad track.
Right.
Right. And so we're talking about west of that.
And the other area was the east.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that help?
It helps me immensely.
Okay. No, you're good. Those are important clarifications.
Glasses, I can't read very well anymore.
We've been through all of these different types of land uses, engineering, planning commission. I wanted to bring up this slide. This is something that we've received since the last time we chatted. This page represents a lot of passion. This is several petitions that we had, well, one petition, several signers that we've received about this plan in opposition. This does not represent everybody that lives there, nor does it, or there are signers on here that live in the area, and that's okay. I put this up here because I think it's important to recognize that there's a lot of anticipation in this area, and we want to make sure that that's recognized. The one thing that I would also additionally say about this is, one of the things that's cited in here is the fact that I think it's the Agricultural Farmland Trust recognizes that every minute there's a loss of agricultural land. We understand that, we recognize that. We recognize that that's a decision that lots of people have to make. The Agricultural Trust is actually one of the ways that people can guarantee agricultural preservation. If people want to put an agricultural conservation easement on their property, that's one way of ensuring continued agricultural land. And so that's always something that we would be happy to talk to people about.
I think one thing we can put out there, once it's an agricultural trust, there's no waste of time.
That's correct. It's an encumbrance. It's an encumbrance that people put on their property voluntarily.
They wanted to down the road to do auction, they cannot do that.
That's correct. Staff's recommendation has not changed. We feel that this is a good place to start. With all planning efforts, we need a place to start and a place to look forward to. I've said this many times, but that map up there doesn't represent what's going to happen tomorrow. It's just our best efforts at helping us understand what we need to do for the future to implement the general plan. And the best way to do that, given all of the circumstances that surround that area of West Mountain. That doesn't encumber anybody to say they have to do that with their property. That doesn't say that we can't look at it again in the future. Again, there's no zoning that's being associated with this plan. It's just a plan. And so as future people come in and ask us questions, we can give them better direction now. And to maintain that quality of life that we always talk about. So again, staff recommends the city council adopt this based on the findings of the staff report, And also, if you noticed in there were a couple of red X's in there. There's some word changes that need to be done. Some inadvertent heavy industrial. And we're not putting any heavy industrial out there. And so we'll just make those unless we haven't done that yet with our consultant. We just wanted to make sure that there weren't any additional changes. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion?
I do. What did this plan cost us? I'm putting just the ballpark.
About $145,000.
We took the money from another proposal that we were going to do to the south of us, correct? And put that money-
No. This one was allocated.
Oh, we allocated, that's right, we allocated this.
Yeah. This has actually been going on prior to that other
This
project.
property, all of this property that we just spent that money on is not in Payson City.
That is correct.
Payson City's not out there knocking on the doors, waving money to people to buy the property. We are just trying to respectively plan for the future in what is a 500-foot level, correct?
Correct.
5,000 foot level, that's fine with me. With the citizens that just left from that annexation, we now have, since I've been on council, we have come to agreement with Santaquin City on our southernmost border, correct?
Correct.
We know where Payson City.
12,400.
Yep, 12,400 is Payson City's growth line. We now know with some adjustments with Salem City that we've recently made, we know where we're going to the east. Yep, 1,800. To the direct north of us, from our neighbors and friends that are there, we know what that is proposed to be right now, correct?
Mhm.
I, for the life of me, can't figure why we can't, knowing, and that's why I let Senator McKell leave before I asked this question. I had asked him to get the data on the projected growth of South Utah County. It's even greater than we were told. Now, that's the projection from the state. That's not Payson City. That's the state that, and their numbers have been, matter of fact, today there was a news article that said that Utah grew 56,000 more than they anticipated this year. 56,000 more, you guys. Payson City's just barely 27,000 right now.
25.
Well, I'm counting with everything that we've approved. Yeah, that's two of Payson's. Do we understand that? So this planning by staff and by the generosity of the city, spending taxpayer dollars of Payson, trying to plan for the future is well beyond trying to work with everybody. I guess the point I'm trying to make is we can put our heads in the sand and say it's not gonna happen, leave me alone. And that's fine, live at the property, but at some point, we have got to get a ring around Payson and say, this is how we are gonna develop. You guys worry about your own selves. Payson City wants to be this.
It would be worse if we didn't plan.
Totally agree. So thank you, staff. Thank you for everything that you put before us. There's been so much time and effort going into this, almost 2 full years, 2.5 years into this one specific plan. I'm concerned from one that pays the bills as far as the sewer and keeping it maintained and keeping the streets pushed. If our density is too small, that we don't have the tax base out there when it all does develop to benefit Payson City. That's my concern. Now, hopefully property taxes will take care of that, right? But we get that much of the property tax.
And hopefully it can support some retail.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's just a tiny bit here, but
Yeah.
There's not very much here.
in Payson, hopefully that can.
I've
help
got
us.
to commend staff again for the time, for those that sat on that board and that pushed this thing to this way. Thank
They
you.
were really great.
Thank you.
Couple of comments that I'd just like to make, just kind of as a general. statement here as we talk about planning ahead, future. When we first looked at this, we were 30 years out, weren't we? It was a long ways out. And we says, no, we're gonna work on the east side. Well, the west side came into play and we've had to come back and look at it. And so still hoping that we're 20, 25 years out on this kind of development out this way. Part of what we have to do though is see that little black dashed line down there is a UDOT road. And so as part of that, we have to say, okay, they're gonna move in and put this road, take it over the bridge, give us an east-west corridor that's gonna be essential. And so how do we want to make everything around it work so that when the time comes and they come in and put that road in, we're not tearing out more houses than are necessary and things like that. And so that's part of the plan ahead. And this is just, hey, this is kind of a good idea. This is what the council at the time approved. And then we go back and we'll have to go through the zoning processes, like, and through the annexations that we've just done the last piece. And it's always good to remember that when people say we don't have enough roads, that we're trying to make sure that those roads that are big enough to carry those populace is there. And I agree. I love the rural. I like the open, and I hate to see little old Payson grow, but I think they're coming.
Okay, any other council comments? Okay, I'll, ready for a motion.
Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve the amendments to the general plan, specifically the Spring Creek area specific plan as charted and mapped as we are presented this evening.
I would add with the text changes.
With the text changes.
And finding, just put in the finding that this is not annexation, this is not common property versus what they can. It's just a plan.
I will accept those amendments.
I'll second it.
Did you get those, Kim?
Okay, we have a motion and second, roll call vote starting with Council Richardson.
I'm kind of torn here. I don't know, maybe I need legal counsel on this. I have 2 or 3 family members that own property within this area. And in all reality, I would rather abstain than to show favoritism one way or the other. And so it's my prerogative. I feel like I'm standing back saying no, but I really want to try to keep peace. So I'm gonna abstain. So.
Council Beach?
Yes.
Council Carter?
Yes.
Council Prostar?
Yes.
Council Hyde?
And I have to announce that I do have property in this area, but it doesn't have really anything to do with the plan. It's just a plan. And the plan could change. They've never even started looking at the road or anything. That plan they have to study that for a lot of years. It's just a plan. That's what he said over and over again. It's just a plan to protect what's going on out there. And we would rather have that plan than have somebody come in and tell us the plan that we have to have. And that's how I've had to look at it. And when we talk about, Robert and I have shot this. I mean, he's awesome to call me back. We have gone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I mean, it's a plan, and that's all it is. You don't have to sell your property. You can be there forever and ever and ever. I mean, I realize there's a few, I'm involved in that too. If that road goes through, there's a few people here. But you can still sell your property. Yeah, you have to let them know, but they can continue to do whatever it is on that property. And the road may never go there. I'm not gonna say it's not because I don't know, but it's just a plan. But I am gonna vote yes, just because there's so much put into this.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, I believe, I will go ahead and read this resolution, canvass the November 21st, 2023.
Is there a conflict?
I can't hear.
Because you're not making money off of it?
I'm not making a bit of money off of it.
Okay.
Until you realtor that, and your
Hey,
developers.
no longer a discussion. We're moving on.
It's just my neighbor.
I understand that. And I don't enjoy getting in front of.
Right, you're right.
I really don't. I gotta control the meeting, so thank you.
I apologize.
No, that's fine. Appreciate you. I really do. Okay,
I hope that we continue the canvas until Wednesday, December 13th, due to a recount by the county.
Okay, so we have a
I'll
motion
second
for that.
Just one addition to that, and maybe we can chat about this for a second. We are scheduled for our next city council meeting on December 20th. As you know, that's the last Wednesday before Christmas. So our proposal would be, since we already will have to have the meeting, there's only a couple items on that scheduled as of right now. If the council's okay with it, we'd like to just move the 20th meeting, move all those items onto the 13th and have our scheduled meeting that day instead.
That's next Wednesday.
Yeah, most posting only requires 24 hours. We do not have any land use issues that would require 10 days or more, so.
But that's a state mandate on the council, right? We have to do
It is, it is required next week, within 7 days, and that's probably the soonest. Well, my understanding is the county's told Kim that we're not likely gonna see the results of that recount until at least Tuesday. So Wednesday would be the earliest we could do it anyway.
So what time?
We'll let you know.
We'll get you.
So our motion still stands.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, starting with.
You did have something.
Oh,
She needs
yeah.
to clarify.
I just want the public and those online to understand why you're,
Thank you.
why you're going to continue the canvass. So the election finished on November 21st. There were 10,804 registered voters, and we had 2,825 ballots that were cast and counted. But during the process of filling seat 1, the 4th phase during ranked choice voting, 2 candidates were 1 vote difference. And because of that, the state law requires us to do a recount. So I received a call from the county elections office yesterday. They explained everything to me. They had already contacted the lieutenant governor's office, and they worked through all of that. And so that is why we have to postpone the counts.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, we have a motion and it's been seconded. What's that?
It was Liz.
Linda. Okay, we've got a form, so we'll go ahead and I'll start with Council Prosgaard.
Yes.
Council Carter.
Yes.
Council Beecher.
Yes.
Council Christensen.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to number 4, and this one will involve a public hearing / resolution, amendment to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. Kathy, we're ready for you.
They already started the budget. Spending it.
There we go. It's kind of small, I apologize. First of all, though, I do want to offer an apology. I made a change and forgot to change the fund balance usage on this. The actual fund balance usage will be $216,800. So what we have is 7 proposed budget adjustments. The first one is a 10-wheel dump truck. We budgeted for that in the revolving loan fund a couple years ago. The expenses just started coming in this year. So I just want to put that back in the budget and be clear, it's just a transparency issue. The next is fireworks. They came in a little bit higher. We went for a little bit a better show, so that was a little bit more expensive. Parks utilities, we needed to add a little bit of budget on that. They're coming a little bit higher than we expected. The next is an infield groomer and gator utility vehicle. The reason we're asking for this right now is recreation fees are coming in higher than we anticipated. And Carl was hoping that he could order that equipment and have it available for the summer to be able to use. Yeah, that too. The next is for the golf tournament. for economic development. The expenses were a little bit higher, but we also got more donations for that, so there's an offset on that. The next is professional services. We have one individual, our inspector is out on sick leave for a while. We wanted to make sure there's enough money in there for contract services to provide building inspection. And the last one is automobile allowance. We needed to adjust that amount. So that's the total of the adjustments we'd recommend.
So are we looking at hiring? I thought we budgeted for a full-time inspector.
We have one. We did not bring the second one forward. Right now, we're using contract services.
I thought we had approved it in the budget. Just,
We had some budget in for another employee,
yeah.
we kind of held that a little bit, the building dropped down some, so Robert still has that in his budget. Did we take it out? Okay.
Okay, I would rather just put money towards that, for the services, that's.
Get another.
Well, right now, because we have an
We have to do
individual
this
on
now.
sick leave, we need to have contract services. But we can bring that forward in the next budget process.
Is that 70?
80,000.
79,000.
For the contract service.
But we've already got budgeted for one, right?
Yes, but he's out on sick leave, so he is getting paid, so his salary is
That's
getting
right,
used.
that's right. Okay. Yeah.
This is because he is.
I'm good.
He's doing better. Hopefully we'll get back.
Yeah, I think so. What an exciting time. Okay, good.
That's all I've got.
That's it? Okay, council, we'll go to a motion to open public hearing.
So moved, Mayor.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion been seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Those that would like to address us on this particular issue, please step to the mic, state your name and speak clearly, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. We'll play with that a little bit if we need to. Express whether you agree or disagree with the previous comments. No statement information, don't. So go ahead and open public hearing.
Why don't you stand up and tell them how much you enjoyed the fireworks this year?
I love them. More money for fireworks.
Okay, state your name.
Oh, Robin Brookstar.
Wonderful.
Fireworks were amazing. We could see them from our house. We were all in the middle of the road. 13 grandkids and all.
Wonderful. Not seeing anybody that's gonna come to the pulpit, which I appreciate your comments. Anything online? Okay, well, accept the motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Any further council discussion? Hey, ready for a motion to take care of this resolution?
I move that we accept the amendments to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget, which was presented to us by Kathy. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and seconded. Roll call vote, starting with Council Hyatt.
Yes.
Council Rosegard.
Yes.
Council Carter.
Yes.
Council Beecher.
Yes.
Council Christensen.
Yes.
Thank you. F, adjourn to redevelopment agency. Help me remember we're directors. Motion to adjourn to the redevelopment agency.
I move we adjourn to the redevelopment agency.
I'll second that.
And second, the first is Beecher, the second is Teresa. Okay. Roll call vote, again, starting with Council Christensen.
Yes.
Council Beecher.
Yes.
Council Carter.
Yes.
Council Rosegard.
Yes.
Council Wyatt. Thank you. Whoop, I already violated what I said. No, we're not in.
No.
Now we are.
Yeah, we're directors.
Okay. Within this redevelopment agency, we, number one, resolution RDA 2024, annual meeting dates and times. I'll accept the motion from our director to ratify this resolution?
I move we, adopt the annual meeting dates and times as outlined in our packet.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A roll call vote as directors. Director Hyatt,
Yes.
Director Prostar.
Yes.
Director Carter,
Yes.
Director Beecher,
Yes.
and Director Christensen.
Yes.
So the motion carries. I'll accept a motion from the directors to adjourn from redevelopment agency.
So moved.
I second.
Okay. Roll call vote again, starting with Director Christensen,
Yes.
Director Beecher,
Yes.
Director Carter,
Yes.
Director Prostar.
Yes.
And Director Hyatt. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to another work session. Sean, I guess you're up.
Finally.
He sat here ready to go all night long.
Now, this will be done in March.
This is a new format, this, so. Yeah, Mark's on. So Mark here?
He's online.
He's on
You
line.
can have him on mute.
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you here, Mark? Thank you for being here.
Yep. No problem.
Mark, quick question. Did you want to share your PowerPoint with us, or do you want us to pull it up for you?
If I can share it, it'd be easier because I can control it, if that's all right.
That would be great. Mayor and Council, we were just gonna have Mark is one of our consultants. We've been updating our impact fees for the electrical. And he wanted to go over a few PowerPoint slides just to give you an update of where we're at. We still have to go through some public hearings. We'll have to have a public hearing on this impact fee. We generally send those to the home builder so they can look at them before we have our public hearing, but we just wanted to do a work session to let him explain the methodology that he's going through and let you know what's going on. So Mark, do you want to take over?
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you again. If you remember back in March, we were approved to do three things for the city of Payson. One was to do a cost of service and rate design for the electric department. The second one was a power cost adjustment. And the third one is this impact fee study. Now, these impact fee studies is something that there's a lot of impact fees that are changing in the electric industry in general, but specifically in the state of Utah. And you had mentioned it earlier, it's because of the growth in your state has been pretty phenomenal, in my opinion. And it's causing utilities to have to expand their services. And one of the things in Utah, what you're allowed to do is to basically help to protect existing ratepayers from increases in cost that would be incurred from making these investments. You're allowed to charge what they call an impact fee. And so what I'm going to be going through tonight is to first define or just refamiliarize you with what an impact fee is and why it's needed. And then also how it's determined, how we actually look at the calculation to determine these fees. The last thing is to show you what the results of the study showed and compare it to a survey of surrounding communities. We're also recommending that you change the structure of the fees, not just the amounts, but the structures. And I'll go through that when I get near the end of the study or end of this presentation. Now, one of the main reasons for an impact fee is to ensure that growth pays for growth. But to determine that, there's really two things that need to be looked at. The first one is the investments that the system needs to make to expand the capacity in the system to serve these additional loads. And once that's determined, we then look at when we add a new customer to our system, they're going to generate revenues for us. In other words, our revenues are going to increase. And some of that is going to go to pay for increases in power supply costs. But a portion of that goes to cover fixed infrastructure costs to repair and replace existing infrastructure. So what we do is we look at that cost, but then we reduce that cost by that value that the new customer brings into the system. So in a sense, we want to protect the existing ratepayers, but we want to be fair to the new customers also. And that's how we balance that. And by the way, as I go through this, if there's any question, please feel free to stop me and ask any questions at any time. Now this slide is the projected capital improvement program over the next 6 years. And this first column is the total cost of that capital improvement. Like, for example, substation property, $185,000. That's all going to be spent sometime within that 6 years. All right. And 100% of that is for new growth. Then I'm going to go down the second one is the circuits for the East Side substation. And we're going to plan to spend $300,000. About 60% of that is attributed to expanding the capacity in the system. When you get into this one, which is the new power resource and the transmission lines, you see that the CIP cost is different than the cost I'm including during this period. And the reason that's happening is the total CIP cost for the power resource is projected at $32.5 million. But we're also anticipating a bond issue to pay for that. The projected bond payments within that time period is estimated at $9 million. And 60% of that new resource is to expand capacity. And the same thing is happening to the transmission line addition on Highway 198. We're issuing debt and we're expected to pay bonds back of $750,000 during this period of time. So the growth that we projected and over each year for the next 6 years is 2.4% annual growth rate, and or 5 years. That was identified by UAMPS. So if I could just stop for a moment and ask if there's any questions at all on these capital improvements.
Yeah, Mark, I do. The projected new resource, with us falling out of grace, or not us falling out, but with the cancellation of the nuclear power, what are we identifying? Are we just being hypothetical here?
I think I'll have to defer to Robert on that.
Is that our new
No,
natural gas
that's
generators?
Natural gas, that's for internal generation just here in the city, the 32.5.
The 32.5?
Yeah, and so.
Just here?
Yeah, that's what I presented about a month ago.
Yeah.
I got the
Oh,
cost.
okay. I was here, I guess when it says new power resource, I was thinking.
Yeah, well, you're thinking
More
deeper
global
about it, which is good, because, I mean, in a way, we put that in our normal power costs, some of that debt and stuff from different plants, when we get our power bill, which isn't necessarily included on this, and that's something else to think about as we go forward. This isn't all the way, this is as complete as we can get for this time, and Mark and Jill worked hard on it, but we're having some engineering engineering studies of the area, and when I'm looking at the area, we're gonna be having more transmission lines than that. I feel like probably sooner, so this will be a living document that's going forward, and we're updating. I mean, from what you guys are talking about, I mean, I can feel it, it's gonna grow a lot here.
Yep.
And we have to get the transmission lines in, and so that's only for the one of them, you know, and we need to make a loop that goes out the south end of town to the west, maybe one that cuts in the middle in order to support this group, growth, or at least have plans for that. And so Mark will work with us in the future to update that.
Okay.
You know.
All right,
If
and then
so,
the last one I had was on the SUVPS,
Yes.
the transmission that we're talking about. Yeah, sorry. No, I want to make sure I understand that.
Okay.
So the SUVPS one that we're working on at our meetings, that's in addition to, or that's what we're working on?
So that's in two parts. So there's a true up that's happening, and we've all agreed on what that is in order to start out a new flush between all the cities in the southern end of Utah Valley, because there was a couple cities that have had explosive growth and haven't necessarily kept up with their investments. So there's a couple cities that overinvested and a couple cities that underinvested, and we're trying to get it all flush, start at zero. Payson was a little ahead, but what we're doing is an addition at the large substation on the south end of Springville that we're connected to. We're doing a project there to all true up and adding different amounts of money so that we come out straight between Springville, Spanish Fork, SESD, Payson, and Salem. And that's gonna be, our portion is gonna be about 800,000 to true up on that. That's one of the projects that we're doing. And then we're planning on starting a bond and do a transmission line between Spanish Fork Canyon and the Taylor substation, which is up by the overpass, kind of the Leland overpass in that area, a 138 line, because we're having problems with voltage and not having lines melt down the last couple of summers. And so we're actually behind. And so I think this is an estimation of the money that's going to go out with that growth, and it could change. And so we'll just keep, this document will probably get updated as we keep going, and especially with the growth, we should keep looking at it a lot. So anyway, I don't
guess
know.
that's my point, is future council needs to know this is gonna inflate.
It could inflate, and it, well, the list could grow, and it could be a little bit different, and we'll just keep. Well, this is something we should do quite often in order to keep up to date, to make sure that as the growth happens, that they pay their share, and it doesn't hurt the residents that are here, the current people. That's the whole goal of what Mark and Jill are trying to do.
And if I misunderstand, tell me, Sean, but that's why it's so important that we do the generating capacity that we're planning on doing, so that we can generate some revenue to help with these.
That'll help with the revenue. It'll also help lower the power price that we're paying out. So that will be more offsetting the power resource side, that, you know, where we have all this portfolio with UAMPS and we're buying market power. We're trying to eliminate our exposure to market power with that and know a set price. And yeah, and hopefully lower the costs for you as residents, but also create a margin that we can pay for some of this infrastructure as well. That's usually what will happen.
Thank you. Now I'm up.
Okay, and it'll change a little bit, but Mark is doing really great and helping us with this. And I mean, we even changed some numbers earlier this week. I think it was Monday, the 32.5. I got really good numbers on the substation. I'm having really hard time with Dominion Energy getting answers. And so I might have a solution for that, or we go to the plant next door and do something different. But anyway, I think that's a pretty good number.
Now, I will say that there's some communities in Utah for the past few years, we've been, because these capital plans have been changing so frequently, we've been having to update the impact fee schedules almost annually, just to accommodate the changes in the capital plans. But the other thing to realize now is when you look at this, there's about $8 million in impact related expenses. And once that's identified, we need to identify, okay, how much additional customers are we going to add over that same period of time? And that's where that 2.4% projected growth comes in. And when we divide the 8,000 or 8 million by our projected growth, and we state it in what we call residential equivalents, that cost is about little over $2,700 per new residential customer. Now, that's the additional capital expenditures that will be needed. But as I mentioned earlier, the new customers will generate revenues that can be used to offset some capital expenditures over this period of time. And when we looked at that value that they bring over this same period, it's $978. So we take that $2,754 and we reduce it by what we call contribution margin, which is that fixed cost recovery that's buried in our rates that we charge, that goes to cover infrastructure costs. When we reduce that, the net charge to the customer, the new customer, is a little less than $1,800. So now when you look at this schedule, not all your customers are residential, obviously. And a typical residential customer is 100 amp service and 120 to 240 volts. From that point, if a customer requests a higher amp service, say a very large home comes in at 200 amps, then their impact fee would be about $3,600. If a large company comes in requesting 1,000 amp service and they want to be, 277 volt, very large, then the charge is $61,000. So this is the difference from what you currently have, and I'll show that on the next page. We created a detailed breakdown of what to charge customers based on their amperage and their voltage, because that's a better indication of their potential impact on the infrastructure in Payson. Now, your current schedule looks like this. I have never seen one like this before. So what I try to do is to put it more in what I would call a standardized format. Because right now you have like a 60 amp service with, if they have an equivalent of 14.4 kVA transformer, their fee is $739. Under this program, it'd be $1,065. On a typical residential that's 100 amp, you're currently charging $1,263. This will increase it to $1,776, which represents a 41% increase to new customers from what they would have paid. Now, the reverse is kind of happening with some of the commercial customers, or slightly less changes. Like if they have a 100 amp service that's commercial, they currently pay $1,421, but really their impacts are the same as a residential on the system as far as their amperages and the capacity that they're taking out of the system. So what we've done is we've standardized these fees. You can see the $1,776 here is the same as the $1,776 for residential up here. So we've simplified it, we standardized it, and we expanded upon it so that it can accommodate different types of voltages and amperages. The last slide I have is to answer the question, how does this compare with nearby communities? And this column is what we're proposing. In other words, for a 200 amp residential, this is 200 amp now. It's a little less than 3,600. We looked at 7 different communities, and of course, what we realized and we're certain of is many of these utilities are actually looking at updating their impact fee schedule. So some of these are low, but they quite likely could go up quite a bit over the next year. But the average of all these communities was about 3,200. And of course, the range goes from a low of a little over $1,000 in Morgan City to a high of 6,300 in Heber City. But all of these, when you look at kind of just glance at these, your schedules compared to the average is actually quite close in most every case. The residentials, you're at for a higher amp service, this would be 7,100, and the average in our survey is about 6,000. But you can see most of these are pretty close. And with that, I want to open it up to any additional questions.
Do you have any questions? So is this a fixed fee for the next 6 years, or does it index?
So a fixed fee until we change it again. In other words, if the capital plan changes, then this will likely change.
Yeah, seeing what I see, it will change. Not from their work is great. I'm saying as we see some of the issues and some of the things we need. Yeah, it's gonna change a bit.
We're doing the same thing on all the other utilities.
Right.
As we get new projects, we're having to adjust.
It's interesting. I just came here from Springville and theirs was way low and they're at 5,700 now. Just
in the last year.
Well, in the last few months, because we didn't do it since 2019. Ours hasn't changed since 2014. So with inflation, I mean, you guys are seeing it, and then there's a huge amount of pressure on electrical equipment just because of government policy. I mean, there's just all the things going on with electrification that is just driving that up. And so we just need to make sure we're on it so that we don't hurt the existing people.
Yeah, existing residents.
Yeah.
So to understand that, for the citizenry, this is for a new connection to our system. It is not existing customers.
Right.
It is just, you build a new home and you ask for a 200 amp service, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's the impact fee for electrical.
And it's a one-time impact fee
Contained
on
impact fee,
electrical. Our sewer, our water,
It's all got the same kind of things.
all gonna do the same thing.
Yeah, and it's basically that way with all of the new development, they pay for it, our citizens. They've already paid.
And that's what we wanted all along. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
What a great addition.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank Mark and Jill for all the work they've done for us. I've been wanting to use Mark for a long time and I never got the chance at Springville. And so I saw him out there and was like, kept trying to bring him in, and I'd have to do my own rates and stuff. And I went to their classes back in 2016, which were awesome down in Austin, Texas. And so I was really happy that you guys already had the process going and had already hired him, and here they are. So, and it's really timely that this changes. So
Mark and Joe, if you're still there, thank you very, very much. We're glad you're the resource that Sean can reach out to.
Pretty good number.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much for those statements. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Means a lot.
Okay. Is there any other questions or anything like that?
I just need to visit with you after the meeting.
Okay.
So, council, the process to adopt an impact fee takes about roughly 30 days with notices. We will be doing that shortly based upon this work session. There's 3 different notices that go out, each a 10-day notice. So we're probably looking at sometime in January. So that will affect the new council members. either end of January or beginning of February is probably more likely, but just so the current council and the ones that are, and the council members that are here, just so you're aware, that's coming up.
Thanks again, Mark and Joe.
All right, thank you. Is there anything else or any other questions?
If we're good.
No, thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Okay, council, after a long night, I'd be glad to accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Yes.